Chapter 1. Kellendil, the capital of the German Empire. It was as shy and beautiful as a young girl. White marble buildings and clean streets were everywhere. Because of this, it was also known as the Holy City. German calendar, Third Era, also known as the Age of Heroes, July 20th, 1492. Today was the first day of the summer celebration and also the most glorious moment of the year in Kellendil. The entire summer celebration would last for a week. At that time, everyone in Gallandir would be immersed in this grand carnival. As for the origin of the summer celebration, people didn't care much about it anymore. What people cared more about was that in the following week, the king and his people would forget about their troubles, drink, and talk merrily. The king of the German Empire was called Theoden the Great. He was a king who was loved and respected by his people. When Theoden was young, his heroic deeds were widely spread by bards and poets. He was generous, broad-minded, brave, and resourceful. He had gone through fire and water with two legendary warriors and had gone deep into all kinds of sensational ancient ruins. There, he had killed monsters and gotten rid of evil for the people. He had also led thousands of troops on expeditions. All of this was so that his people could live a peaceful and stable life. Therefore, on Theoden's 30th birthday, the ministers proposed that the week of Theoden's birthday be the summer celebration, to commemorate the past glory and victories. Since then, this time of year had become a day that people looked forward to. This was because during this week, people didn't have to work and could enjoy themselves to the fullest. This year, the summer celebration came as usual. Just this morning, Theoden the Great summoned his people in front of the Hero Palace. Tens of thousands of people were waiting in the square in front of the Hero Palace to see Theoden the Great. The people were enthusiastic and devout. In their eyes, Theoden the Great was their god. Although Theoden the Great was getting on in years, he was still as handsome as ever. After all, this was his 60th birthday. He had been in power since he was 20 years old, and it had been 40 years since then. It could be said that he had dedicated his life to the empire and to the people who loved him. Standing beside Theoden the Great was the beautiful queen, also known as Queen Darlena. Queen Darlena's beauty was unmatched by any other queen in the past because of the noble elven blood flowing in her body. She was a mix of human and high elf. Although she was over 30 years old, she looked like a young lady in her early 20s. Her beauty was pure and holy, and it made people yearn for her. Perhaps only such a beautiful empress was worthy of such a valiant emperor. They had a child, Prince Kaiser. In front of the magnificent Hero Palace, the 60-year-old Theoden the Great waved his hand warmly to his people. The audience was silent. Then, he spoke into a microphone made of stone. "My dear people, welcome to this year's summer celebration. No matter where you come from, tonight we will party all night. Let the flowers and wine, the beauties and the dancing, and the delicious food accompany you for the next week." The square was silent for a moment. Then, thunderous applause came from the tens of thousands of people in the square. Just like that, this year's summer celebration officially began. First, the inspection of the Imperial Guards began in the square in front of the Hero Palace. This was a legendary troop made up of thousands of people. They were all elites in the army. They wore bright red battle uniforms, silver armor, and weapons. All of their weapons and equipment were brand new and shiny. At the front of the troop were infantrymen holding flags. They were burly and wore silver armor, bright red cloaks, and snow-white feathers on their helmets. This made the onlookers' blood boil. Back in the day, Theoden the Great had led such a mighty troop to conquer and expand the territory. In the middle of the troop were tall and strong cavalrymen. They were riding on white horses with exquisite saddles. They looked majestic and holy. People couldn't help but admire their training. At the back of the troop were archers. Both the crossbows and the bows in their hands were made of the best materials. These people had sharp eyes and agile movements. They deserved to be the best archers of the empire. When the mighty Imperial Guards walked slowly in front of the people, they couldn't control their emotions and cheered loudly. "Long live Theoden the Great! Long live the German Empire!" Then, All kinds of festive floats drove past the square. There were all kinds of performances on them. It was colorful and gorgeous. The people also used their own methods to express their love for great Emperor Therodon. All in all, the whole of Kelendil was immersed in the joy of the festival. That night, a grand banquet was held in the Hero Palace. Bright candlelight crackled. Delicious wine and delicacies were displayed on the long table. On both sides of the long table sat all the lords from the various provinces of the German Empire. There were a total of 11 lords. Some of them were highly respected people in various fields. The rest were the ministers of the palace. Theoden the Great, Theoden the Great, Theoden the Great. Amidst everyone's cheers, Theoden the Great walked from the back of the hall to the main seat. The beautiful Empress Darlina also sat on the throne made of gold. Great Emperor Sirden paused his throat, causing everyone present to stop their clamor. My dear lords, let's drink to our heart's content tonight. We won't rest until we're drunk. Oh, long live Theoden the Great. Then, the banquet began. First, there were strippers from the Haruz province. Next, there were topless wrestling performances from the Karut province. Then, there were clown magic performances from the Durman province. Finally, there were beast-taming performances from the Northland province. In short, the banquet went on in a cheerful atmosphere. My Empress, give me a cup of honey wine. At this moment, Theoden the Great didn't have the glory he had in the morning. Instead, he looked more like a funny old man. Empress Darlina didn't want to be ordered around in front of so many people, even if the other party was the Emperor of the Reich. However, she still handed a golden ivory cup of honey wine to Theoden. Theoden took her into his arms. There was a lot of cheering below the stage. At this moment, everyone was a little drunk. Many lords were playing with the bodies of the strippers. Moreover, there are also some highly respected people who were doing some improper things with the palace maids. However, Darlina pushed away Theoden, who wanted to be intimate with her. Theoden wasn't angry. Instead, he hugged Darlina's waist tightly and buried his head in her snow-white chest. The more Darlina struggled, the more the crowd cheered. The hero Theoden the Great no longer existed. At this moment, he was more like the pervert Theoden. The banquet went on in a licentious atmosphere. There was scattered food, wine in glasses, and nobles in disheveled clothes. At this moment, in a place called the Mountain of Death, a pair of red eyes were looking towards the south. He whispered in a complicated dragon language. He spread his black wings, and his huge body was enough to make people tremble. Yes, he was a dragon. He would bring endless destruction. Chapter 2. I'll never forget that day. It was July 20th, 1492, the first day of the summer celebration. It was only on that day that I understood what true fear was. My name was Lyric Field. I was an orphan, and it was Hist who raised me. He wasn't just my foster father, he was also my mentor. Hist was a seasoned mercenary. His experiences would take more than 3 days and 3 nights to recount. In the 6 years that I spent learning from him, our adventures were enough to write an entire adventure novel. I was 26 years old, and old Hist was 45 years old. However, he looked older than his actual age. Our profession was too unique. We often lived in the open, and we experienced all kinds of sensational things. Ever since we heard that the summer celebration was going to be held in the capital, old Hist and I rushed from Wilson in the northern province to Kelendil. When I saw this city, which was known as a holy city, I couldn't help but be impressed by its beauty. The roads in the city were paved with granite, and the pure white marble buildings were simple but elegant. The bustling people on the streets, the lively market, and the noisy bars were all telling the story of the city's prosperity. Many people from all over the empire had been preparing to leave for Kelendil for a long time. Finally, today they all arrived at the majestic royal city one after another. Everyone had only one goal in mind, and that was to celebrate the upcoming summer celebration. Old Hist and I had come all the way from Wilson to the capital to witness this unprecedented event. Actually, I wanted to see the legendary beauty of the Queen. In the end, old Hist agreed to come with me to Kelendil to participate in the summer celebration. The king's speech, the guards of honor, and the parade of floats had nothing to do with us. There were too many people, and the huge square in front of the Hero Palace was surrounded by a sea of people. Old hissed, and I had to stay in a place called the Green Dragon Bar. I was forced to listen to the bar owner talk about the heroic deeds of King Theoden, while Old Hist sat there reading a book in his hand. The only thing that comforted me was the fact that the waitress in the bar was pretty. At night, there were revelers everywhere. People forgot themselves and drank as much as they could. At this time, the festive fireworks went off, and the sky was lit up by colorful fireworks. Old Hist, and I didn't drink because Highside the Elder had taught me to keep a clear head at all times. At this moment, the whole city was enveloped in a festive atmosphere. I wanted to muster up the courage to talk to the cute waitress, but a few people beat me to it. The group of people seemed to be drunk. There were 3 of them in total, and they began to grope the waitress. The waitress wasn't happy. She wanted to push the 3 drunkards away, but they wouldn't let go of her. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I walked over. Old Hiss saw this, but he didn't stop me. He continued to read the book without batting an eyelid. Please show some respect to this lady. She doesn't want to talk to you. My voice wasn't loud, but the 3 men burst out laughing. Ha ha! Where did this young man come from? Said a bald man. Who do you think you are? You sissy. Get out of my sight, said a drunkard with braided hair. You want to save the damsel in distress? You little bastard, crawl under my crotch, and I'll spare your life, said another man with a scar on his face. After the 3 of them finished speaking, I used my actions to tell them that you can't judge a book by its cover, and you can't measure the sea with a pint pot. The man with the scar on his face took out a dagger and tried to stab me. I used the dagger I took from the man with the scar on his face and cut off his ear. He probably didn't know what was going on as blood flowed down from his ear. The other 2 men who tried to attack me also had their ears cut off in the same way. Screams like pigs being slaughtered echoed in the bar. The 3 of them covered their left ears and ran out of the bar, leaving 3 bloody ears on the ground. I wanted to say that it was lucky that they ran fast. Otherwise, I wouldn't have just cut off their left ears. This was just the tip of the iceberg that Old Hist had taught me. Don't forget that my job was much more dangerous than this. It was more than enough to deal with a few drunkards. The waitress saw that I helped her out, and she had a good impression of me. Hello, I'm Avina Edith. You can call me Avina. Thank you so much for just now, the waitress said to me with a smile. You? Okay, I'm Lyric Field. You can call me Lyric. I don't know why, but when I saw such a cute girl, I inexplicably became nervous. My face felt a bit hot, and my heart was beating fast. Haha, you're so nice. Avina kissed me lightly on the cheek. I felt as if my whole body had been electrocuted. For a boy like me who grew up in the wilderness, a kiss from a girl I liked was something I had never experienced before. While I was still immersed in this sudden and wonderful happiness, the 3 men whose ears I cut off brought a group of people back to the Green Dragon Tavern. It's that brat. The man with the pigtails pointed at me and said. Immediately, the group of people he brought with him rushed towards me, all of them holding weapons in their hands. For a moment, the Green Dragon Bar was in chaos. Avina was so scared that her face turned pale. She quickly hid. However, what no one expected was that, suddenly, a loud sound came from above. The bar ceiling was hit by a huge fireball. What's going on? I, who originally wanted to show off my skills, encountered an unexpected situation. It can't be that there's something wrong with the cannon, right? While I was still thinking, I heard cries and shouts coming from outside the bar. The dozen people that the 3 drunkards brought didn't have the heart to fight with me anymore. They walked out of the bar to see what was going on. Old Hist knew that the situation wasn't good. His expression was very serious, and he quickly pulled me out of the bar. After leaving the bar, I finally understood what was going on. Was this the so-called doomsday? The streets of Kellendil were covered in a sea of fire, and the sky became incomparably ferocious. From the sky, there was an endless stream of lava-like fireballs hitting the ground. Charred corpses were everywhere. In the sky that was as bright as day, a huge black shadow attacked. Is that a dragon? Oh my God, it's really a dragon. The legendary dragon actually appeared in front of us. The loud dragon's roar made everyone's ears and nerves feel like they were about to burst. The scorching dragon's breath turned everything in its path into ashes. No one could escape from the dragon's claws. It seemed that the once glorious city would be destroyed tonight during this grand festival. Pain and despair filled everyone's heart. Disaster fell from the sky. Everyone was a lowly and insignificant existence. Only that dragon was the true ruler of this world. Getting out of here was my only thought. I thought of Avina. I had to find her and prepare to bring her away from this hell on earth. I turned around and returned to the broken green dragon bar. I saw the pig-tailed corpse, her entire face burned away. I didn't have time to sigh because I saw Avina curled up under the bar in fear. I quickly rushed over, but what I didn't expect was that a wooden stake that was about to burn off would fall on me. It was about to hit my head. Chapter 3. I didn't know if I was fated to die, or if this was the so-called arrangement of fate. The burnt wooden stake didn't hit my head. Instead, it was sent flying by old Cessperd's magic. I didn't die. Highside the Elder had saved me. However, Old Hist was hit by a giant fireball that fell from the sky while trying to save me. Old Hist's left arm was crippled, and the left side of his body was burnt. He almost died on the spot. His face was pale, and blue veins bulged on his forehead. He was sweating profusely. Run. Leave this city as soon as possible. Old Hist used the last of his strength to tell me. I didn't know what I was thinking at the time, but I carried Old Hist on my back and pulled Avina out of the ruins. I ran helplessly, wanting to leave this terrible nightmare as soon as possible. Go to Bohep Town, find our mercenary group's secret base there, and tell them about this disaster. Old Hist's voice was weak and intermittent. I couldn't remember anything. I only knew that I was running forward with all my might. Flames were burning on both sides of the street. Kellendil was burning in a sea of fire. In the direction of the Hero Palace, several highly respected top-notch strongmen were fighting the evil dragon. One had to know that these people were all very powerful. Among them, there were high-level mages from the Sorcerers Association, elite knights from the Church's Knights, and legendary warriors from the Mercenaries Association. However, the outcome of the battle was extremely tragic. Although their strength was enough to make any ordinary person bow down and worship, after exchanging blows with the dragon, their radiance gradually dimmed until they fell. The dragon's powerful wings made it impossible for anyone to catch up to its speed. Its scorching dragon breath could turn everything into dust. Its powerful claws could destroy all defenses. At the same time, the incomparably tough scales on its body made any attacks ineffective. With a boom, the Hero Palace collapsed. I knew it was all over. No one would be a match for this evil dragon. The legendary figures of the past would all die in this disaster. I didn't know how much time had passed, but I took Avina and Hist with great difficulty to reach Kellendil's once magnificent city gate. There were many people who were trying to escape, and the city gate was congested. I held on to Avina's hand tightly, afraid that she would be separated from the crowd. At the same time, I also grabbed on Old Hist's clothes to prevent him from falling off my back. At the moment, the evil dragon was nowhere to be found. The Hero Palace was in a mess. The king, the ministers, and the nobles were all dead. The city was already in chaos. There were charred corpses everywhere, emitting a pungent smell. I could clearly feel that the dragon's attack was directed at the king and the others, and that we were nothing more than insignificant victims. After destroying the Hero Palace, the dragon hovered in the sky for a while, but didn't continue attacking the innocent civilians of Kellendil. Instead, it gradually flew away from the city until it disappeared. Many years later, this evil black dragon had become the Derman's nightmare. People called it the Wing of Destruction. At the moment, the three of us had finally squeezed through the city gate and arrived at the outskirts of the city. Only then did my suspended heart gradually calm down. I didn't know if I should be happy or sad that I had survived. The Old Hist seemed to have reached his limit. His face was pale, and his body was limp. He wasn't only my foster father, but he was also my teacher and a great hero that I admired. But now he was severely injured because of me. The Old Hist asked me to take him to the town of Bohep, which wasn't far from the city. He said that he had something important to tell me there. Avina knew some simple bandaging techniques. so she treated the old Hist wounds. Avina had taken care of the injured old Hist along the way. Otherwise, the old Hist would have died long ago. We followed old Secede's instructions and headed to the nearby town of Boheap, going through many hardships along the way. Finally, a day later in the evening, we came to the town of Boheap. To our surprise, there wasn't a single person in town. The streets were deserted and could even be described as eerie. "Old Hist, what should we do?" I asked the half-conscious Hist. He only looked around and didn't answer my question. I keep having the feeling that someone is watching us from the shadows. AI Wayna was the first to speak. After a long while, the old Hist sighed. His tone seemed to carry a trace of sadness. "This place has really changed. I didn't know what Boheap used to be like, but the current state was indeed creepy. Moreover, it had just gone through such a sudden calamity. Who knew what would happen next?" On the deserted streets, there were bloodstains left behind by some unknown creature. Just as we didn't know what to do, a fireball suddenly came at us from the roof. My first reaction was that we had encountered an evil mage. This was bad. With the three of us in our current state, it was impossible for us to fight against a mage. The old Hist used his remaining mana to cast a spell. A transparent barrier blocked the fireball. At this critical moment, old Cesard, who was on my back, saved us. "Magic shield, you are..." At this moment, the magician who suddenly appeared on the roof sounded very surprised. The mage was wearing a purple robe. Because she was wearing a hood and the evening light wasn't very good, I couldn't see her face clearly. However, from her figure, I could tell that she was a woman with a good figure. The female mage was shocked by the spell cast by the High-Side the Elder. She didn't continue to attack us. Instead, she stood on the roof and questioned us. "Who are you people? What are you doing here?" I was angry because I felt that the woman's tone was very arrogant. What right did she have to question us? "May the glory of Idea protect this land forever," the old Hist said in a weak voice. I couldn't understand his words. I had never heard the Hist mention who Idea was. I didn't know why he would say such a thing. However, what I didn't expect was that the female mage was stunned for a few seconds after hearing the old Hist words. Then, she jumped down from the roof. "Everyone come out." As soon as the female mage finished speaking, a few people walked out from behind the broken house. They were all fully armed. "Third Captain, is it really you? You're finally back." The female mage ran over excitedly and hugged the old Hist on my back. At this time, the old Hist was completely unconscious because he had used too much mana. Only Avina and I were left standing there, not knowing what to do. When a maid saw that the old Hist's left arm was gone, she immediately cried. "Hurry, bring Captain Hist to the secret base and let Mayfair treat him." The female mage's words were very important. The few people took Hist from my back and carried him into a room. At this time, I saw the female mage's face clearly. It was an unforgettable face, fair and beautiful, with a trace of kindness in her arrogance. Chapter 4. "Hello, my name is Natalia Hill. You can call me Natalia," the female mage greeted us. I was a little shy since I had never been so close to such a beautiful woman. I felt that the past few days had been the peak of my life. I was able to interact with beautiful girls like Avina and Natalia. "My name is AI Wayna. You just attacked us. What do you want now?" AI Wayna saw that I was acting unnaturally, so she asked the female mage. "I'm sorry. It was a misunderstanding. We had no choice but to attack an unknown person." Natalia looked apologetic. Natalia's apology didn't satisfy Avina. I had no choice but to mediate between the two women. "What happened here?" I asked. I guess that they had attacked us because something had happened here. It's a long story. Let's go to the base first. Natalia led us to the room where she had carried the old Hist. Avina and I followed Natalia into the room. When we entered the room, it didn't feel any different from an ordinary house. Natalia walked to a wardrobe that was close to the wall. She placed something that looked like a badge in a groove on the wardrobe's door. The wardrobe's door opened, and Natalia walked in. Avina and I walked over. We saw that the wardrobe was the entrance to a secret passage. We followed the stairs and entered the secret base. This secret underground base was really big. It could accommodate at least 100 people living underground. The wardrobe's door closed automatically after we came down from the secret passage. First, we followed Natalia to a place that looked like a large hall. The light in the hall was dim, and it was lit by candles and torches on the walls. Welcome to the Demon Hunter's Blade's secret base. Your Lord Hist's friends. That's why I brought you here. Natalia's attitude became more enthusiastic. It seemed she wanted to show us around. Where's the old Hist? Where did you take him? I asked. Don't worry, Mayfair is treating him. She's the best healer we have here. Hist is the third-generation leader of our Demon Hunter's Blade. I care more about his safety than you do. Natalia seemed to have read my mind, so I didn't say anything else. Although the old Hist never mentioned this Demon Hunter's Blade to me, I believe that the old Hist's strength should not be a problem for him to become a mercenary leader. Avina and I follow Natalia to tour the secret base. Natalia was in charge of explaining things to us. First, we came to the training grounds, where a few mercenaries from the Demon Hunting Blade were training. The training grounds were divided into several areas. There was a crossbow training ground, a combat training ground, and a magic training ground. Next, we came to a small smithy, where a dwarf uncle was focused on forging weapons. His name is Ram Iron Drill. If you need weapons or equipment in the future, you can look for him. His forging skills are very good. Hearing Natalia's praise, Ram stopped what he was doing and greeted us. Newcomers, if you need a good weapon, don't hesitate to tell me. The dwarf uncle's appearance was very forthright. Obviously, he thought that Avina and I were new mercenaries. After leaving the smithy, we visited Natalia's private magic laboratory. She told me and Natalia that if we were interested, she could teach us some magic. She could even teach us alchemy and enchantment. Alchemy was refining all kinds of medicinal materials into magic potions. Enchantment was applying magic incantations to weapons, giving them magical effects. Both of them were high-level skills that only mages could learn. I suddenly felt that I was very ignorant and inexperienced. There were many strange things here that I had never heard of before. What was even more eye-opening for me was the following place. Furthermore, I met a person that I would never forget in my entire life. There was a large room in the corner of the secret base. Natalia led me and Avina into the room. A golden-haired youth wearing light leather armor was throwing a black ball-shaped object at the corner of the wall. With a bang, the stone shattered in all directions. I didn't know what to say when I saw this scene. I had never seen such a strange thing before. Miss Natalia, how do you have the time to visit me? Who are these two? Let me guess. You must be new members that Natalia tricked. You should know that our job is very dangerous. I advise you to give up. Before we could open our mouths, the golden-haired young man started talking to himself, making the situation awkward. If I had known, I wouldn't have brought you here to see this lunatic. Natalia seemed to regret bringing us to this place. Don't go. Let me show you my newest creation. The blond boy turned around proudly and found a silver-plated crossbow under his messy workbench. The workmanship of the crossbow could be said to be excellent. Isn't this made by Lamu? Natalia said mercilessly. Well, he was the one in charge of making it. However, this design was invented by me, a genius, who asked me to be the famous Lord Kelvin. Looking at this blond boy who called himself Lord Kelvin, putting so much effort into his performance, I felt that he was more suited to be a court clown. Don't look down on this crossbow. I call it the Demon Hunting Crossbow. It can be loaded with 30 silver-plated crossbow bolts in one go. Moreover, it can be fired continuously. Moreover, I specially made some crossbow bolts with special functions. Its destructive power is very shocking because it can fire 30 consecutive bolts without needing to be reloaded. After listening to Kelvin's introduction, I felt that this demon hunting crossbow was indeed very powerful. In the past, when I went to hunt monsters with Hist, I used a crossbow for a while. I felt that it took a lot of time to reload. However, I had never heard of a crossbow that could fire continuously. Now, I saw something that I had never heard of before with my own eyes. How is it? Not bad, right? Newbie, if you're interested, I can lend it to you for free for a few days. The blond boy's generosity made me wonder if there was some kind of trap. I took the demon hunting crossbow and accidentally pulled the trigger. The crossbow bolts instantly shot to the ceiling and almost blinded Kelvin's eyes. Hee, newbie, be careful. I almost lost my life. Kelvin shouted angrily. Avina and Natalia also broke out in cold sweat. I also scratched my head in embarrassment. My name is Larrick Field. If you need any help in the future, just let me know. I extended my right hand to Kelvin. Kelvin also extended his right hand. However, before we could shake hands, we heard a loud bang from the ceiling. It seemed that something terrifying had happened up there. Oh no, they are here. Natalia's expression suddenly became very serious. Even Kelvin became nervous. What is it? I had a puzzled expression. Chapter 5. Natalia didn't answer me. Instead, she gathered a few fully armed mercenaries and prepared to face this unknown enemy. I realized that the female magus in front of me had such a determined side. Thus, I decided to go with Natalia and the others to see what was going on. I told Avina to stay here while I took Kevin's demon hunting crossbow. Larrick, I don't know what his taught you, but I don't think anyone can help you with what's going to happen next. I won't hold you back. My expression was resolute as I pulled the bowstring of my demon hunting crossbow. All right, I admire your courage. Let's go. Natalia turned around and said to the other fully armed mercenaries. Just like that, the 7 of us walked toward the entrance of the secret base. Kevin, if we don't return in an hour, open the defensive barrier of the base. Don't worry about us. Natalia left these words and brought us to the entrance of the secret passage. Avina's eyes were red. We had relied on each other all this time. After going through so much together, she was starting to feel reluctant to leave me. The 7 of us carefully walked out of the room and quickly found a place to hide so that we could observe our surroundings. To be honest, this was the first time I was working with so many people. I was still a little nervous. Moreover, the enemy we were about to face was still unknown. However, it didn't seem like they were easy to deal with. The streets of the town gave me an extremely eerie feeling. Night had fallen, and the moonlight in the pitch-black night looked extremely sinister. What is it? I had experienced many strange things since I was young, but this was the first time my heart was filled with fear. Suddenly, a ball of ghostly green light lit up one of the houses in the surroundings. What kind of flame was that? It seemed to have come from the underworld. What happened next shocked the 7 of us. About a few hundred knights emitting ghostly green light and rotting to the point where only skeletons were left were walking toward us. The horses of these knights were also skeletons, and their armor was broken like ancient weapons. However, the green light that enveloped them made one shudder. Natalia signaled to us not to act rashly. We nodded in response. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Among the hundreds of knights, one of them seemed to be their leader because the armor on his body was of a higher grade than the other knight's armor. At first glance, he looked like a noble, but his armor was also very broken. I suddenly remembered that they should be the ghost riders recorded in the ancient books. Heavens, this was a magical creature that only existed in legends. How could it appear alive in our world? According to the book, the Ghost Knights were originally the personal cavalry of His Majesty, the ancient Sage Emperor. Later on, they betrayed the ancient Sage Emperor for unknown reasons during a major battle. In the end, the ancient Sage Emperor died in battle. Before he died, the ancient Sage Emperor cursed this army so that they would never be reincarnated. Since then, this unit had disappeared, and only a few words about them were occasionally recorded. It could be said that the Ghost Riders were undead and immortal. At the same time, they were also extremely powerful. They weren't something that we could resist at all. Just like that, we waited quietly because we all knew the difference in strength between us and the Ghost Riders. In the end, this group of Ghost Riders from the Netherworld didn't attack us. They seemed to have something important to do. They left Bohep Town in an orderly manner and headed west. What was going on? After this group of Ghost Riders all passed through, I felt weak all over. Perhaps it was because I was too tense earlier. It's already the 3rd day. Just 3 days ago, this group of undead suddenly appeared and attacked Bohep Town. A mercenary wearing heavy armor and holding a sword and shield said. This man had brown hair, a burly figure, and a simple and honest appearance. I later learned that his name was Flance Davis and that he used to be an Imperial Knight. Also, their numbers and quality are increasing exponentially. On the first day, less than 10 evil spirits suddenly appeared, and we lost more than half of our mercenaries. If it wasn't for Natalia, we would all be dead, another mercenary said. There must be something fishy about this. So many undead suddenly appeared. Is the end of the world coming? I think we should discuss this with Captain Hist after he wakes up. Natalia was also covered in cold sweat. Let's go back. Natalia gave me a faint smile and told us to go back to the secret base to make further plans. However, something we didn't expect happened. A ghost rider suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and we couldn't help but tense up again. Prepare for battle, Natalia shouted. At the same time, a burning fireball formed in her hands. Bang! The burning fireball hit the ghost rider, but the ghost rider seemed to be transparent. The fireball directly passed through his body and landed on the roof of another room. The room instantly burst into flames. The other members of the Brotherhood also rushed over. A terrifying scene happened. Poochie, a mercenary holding a silver sword, had his head cut off by the ghost rider's rusty two-handed sword. The mercenary's head rolled a few times on the ground. Blood splattered on our faces. At that moment, we were really close to death. The other mercenaries were also furious. They waved their weapons and slashed at the ghost rider with all their might. As expected, it was as if they were slashing at air. There was no effect at all. However, the ghost rider's sword didn't show any mercy at all. It cruelly pierced through their bodies. In an instant, only Natalia, Flance, and I were left. The other 4 mercenaries who had been accompanying us earlier were now lying powerlessly in a pool of blood. They were brave and fearless, but their enemy was too strong. Just as the ghost rider was about to slash at Flance with his sword, my demon-hunting crossbow started firing. Poochie, Poochie. The silver-plated crossbow bolts rained down on the ghost rider's body. This time, there was finally some effect. The ghost rider's body was broken into pieces by me. However, if you thought he would die so easily, you were sorely mistaken. The ghost rider's body quickly returned to normal. Flance blocked the ghost rider's attack with his shield and slashed at the ghost rider's head with his sword. With an ear-piercing sound, the ghost rider disappeared without a trace. Perhaps this was the final resting place of an undead. Suddenly, the ghost rider that had disappeared suddenly reappeared behind me. Be careful! Natalia paled because the ghost rider's sword was about to take my life. Chapter 6. Just as the ghost rider was about to chop off my head with its rusty sword, Natalia thought I would die just like that and almost cried. But in fact, my life wasn't so short. I was still alive, and it was all thanks to the talkative but nice inventor, Kelvin. At this critical moment, he hit the ghost rider with the firearm he invented. The silver bullet ejected from a huge impact of the firearm hit the ghost rider's head. It wasn't ordinary ammunition, but silver bullets soaked in holy water. They were extremely effective against the undead and vampires. I only heard the bullet whistle past my ear. Then, the ghost rider's face began to contort in extreme pain and ferocity. In the end, it slowly turned into black smoke and dissipated. The fierce battle was finally over, and all of us were exhausted. 7 people had come out of the base, but in the end, only Flance, Natalia, and I were left. If Kelvin hadn't arrived in time, I might have died too. Kelvin, thank you. I smiled weakly at Kelvin. Sigh. I knew something must have happened when you didn't come back after such a long time. But you don't have to thank me. Just listen to me, Lord Kelvin, in the future. The blonde boy was pretending to be relaxed again. Actually, when I saw him pull the trigger, his legs were trembling in fear. Didn't I tell you to activate the defensive barrier and leave us alone? What if there were too many monsters and they rushed into the base? Natalia had somehow become cold and aloof again, and she reprimanded Kelvin, who had arrived in time. Kelvin felt wronged and didn't say a word. It's all thanks to Kelvin. Otherwise, I would have died. I couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up for my savior. Shut up. You're not a mercenary of the Demon Hunter's Blade. You have no right to interfere in our matters. Besides, you were the one who begged me to bring you out. Didn't you say you wouldn't be a burden to us?" Natalia's words were hurtful. I didn't know how she had changed so quickly. I thought she was worried about me, but now it seemed like nothing had happened. "Flance, find 2 people to bury these dead brothers." After saying that, Natalia left us and returned to the base alone. However, I could see that the corners of her eyes were red. Only Flance, Kevin, and I were left. The 3 of us looked at each other. "Flance, you should go back first. This scene doesn't suit you." Flance looked like a mature man. Kelvin was smart enough to return to the base, leaving me and Fran alone. Don't mind Natalia's words. She's a good woman, but she doesn't know how to get along with others. She's been the leader of the mercenary group for the past few years without a leader. It's not easy for a woman. If she doesn't put on an unapproachable look, it will be difficult for her to maintain her prestige in the mercenary group. Flance didn't need to comfort me. In fact, I wasn't angry at Natalia at all. I knew that the reason why Natalia scolded Kevin was because she didn't want the mercenary group in the base to be destroyed. Moreover, we had lost too much in this battle. 4 people were killed. Natalia must be very sad. "Lyric, help me dig 4 holes. Let's bury these brothers." I found a shovel and began to dig in the town's public graveyard. I was willing to do something for the old Hiss mercenary group. Just like that, I finally finished digging 4 holes. It was almost dawn. May the glory of Idea protect this land forever. Looking at Flance's deep voice, I couldn't help but understand what a mercenary should shoulder and what their mission was. Who's Idea? I had never heard the old Hiss mention this person before. However, when we had just arrived in Boheap Town, the old Hiss had also said, "May the glory of Idea protect this land forever." We, the demon-hunting Blade Brotherhood, exist to pursue the truth of Idea, the ruler of all things. As for the details, I will tell you slowly in the future. Flance brought me back to the secret base. The moment we returned, we heard that the old Hiss had woken up. We immediately rushed to the room where the old Hiss was. The moment I entered the room, I saw that almost everyone was there. Avina, Kevin, Lam, and Natalia were all guarding Hiss. I saw that Hiss was still a little weak, but he was fine now. I immediately rushed over to him. I wanted to cry, but I knew that Hiss didn't want me to cry. "It's all right, Lyric. Thanks to Mayfair's treatment, I'm fine now," Hiss said with a smile. Only then did I notice that there was a pink-haired elf girl standing next to Hiss. Regarding elves, I had only heard that most of them lived in the Elf Kingdom at the southern end of the continent. They were divided into High Elves and Wood Elves. High Elves were mostly proficient in magic and had handsome appearances. They were usually the ruling class with noble bloodlines. The Wood Elves had a lower status than the High Elves, but they were the best scouts and archers on the continent. Humans were fond of talking about elves' age and appearance. A Wood Elf's lifespan was between 500 to 800 years, while some High Elves could live up to 1,000 years. As for appearance, elves had beauty and long ears that humans didn't have. Moreover, the nobler their bloodline, the longer their ears would be. From her appearance, the pink-haired elf before me should be a High Elf. She should be around 200 years old, which was equivalent to a 20-year-old human girl. This elf girl was called Mayfair Wood. She specialized in healing and buff magic. "Leader, I will work hard." The way Mayfair spoke was like a naive young girl. After being praised by Hiss, she blushed shyly. At this moment, old Hiss turned to me and said, "Lyric, I didn't tell you my identity in the past because I didn't want you to take on too much responsibility. But now, I'm old and I've lost my left arm. I want you to inherit my career and become a real mercenary. Moreover, you will officially become a member of the Demon Hunter's Blade." I wasn't used to old Hiss suddenly becoming so serious. In the past, I had always followed Hiss to explore the world. Hiss treated me like a father. Now, Hiss wanted me to inherit his career and join the Demon Hunter's Blade as a mercenary. My heart was filled with excitement. "I have a request." I suddenly remembered something important. "What request?" Old Hiss looked at me. "I want." Chapter 7. I want Avina to join us. I finally said, "I want Avina to join us." Avina was a little embarrassed in front of everyone when I said that, but I could see that she was actually very happy. The other people's attitude wasn't that strange. They also hoped that Avina could join the Demon Hunter's Blade. All right, I agree to your request, but Avina must be willing. I can't force her to join. Hist had a kind smile on his face. In my mind, old Hist was always such a kind old man. No matter how terrible things were, he could always smile indifferently. I'm willing. I also want to join the mercenary group. Avina happily nodded and agreed. Just like that, Avina and I officially became the new members of the Demon Hunter's Blade. We used the blood on our fingertips to make an oath in front of the god of all things, Idia, and vowed to fight for truth and justice. In the next few days, Old Hist told me that due to the current situation, our mercenary group's base would be moved to the Bear Town in the northern province, where we would rebuild our mercenary group. The place we were now in was the town of Boheap in the eastern part of the German Empire. Most of the people living here were Derman. They were the descendants of the ancient Derman kingdom. The northern province was originally the territory of the Northland natives, so it was also called the Northland province. Old Hist was a true Northland man, so it was reasonable for him to want to move the Brotherhood to the northern province. Regarding the Northland natives, I had been in contact with Hist for many years. They weren't like the Derman. They were bold and unrestrained, kind and tolerant, brave and good at fighting. They were willing to sacrifice themselves for their friends and were willing to face death for their enemies. After Old Hist told the other members of the Brotherhood about his idea, they didn't have any objections. However, Kevin said that he couldn't stand the climate in the north, and Flans told him to wrap himself in bearskin. Kevin could only curse this rough night in his heart. After everyone reached a consensus, they began to prepare for the move. During this time, Hist asked me to go out with Natalia and the others to scout the situation. Flans, Natalia, and I formed a three-man team and left the secret base to scout for information on the road to Ursa Town. Avina wanted to come with us, but Old Hist didn't allow her to. Avina had no choice but to practice the basic skills that a demon hunter should have in the base. Flans, Natalia, and I left the secret base. We left Boheap Town and headed north. We saw many strange things along the way. The world had begun to change, but we didn't know what it would become. Since the Black Dragon Ear Deal, the Wing of Destruction, attacked the capital of Kellendil, the news of the death of the great King Theoden had spread throughout the German Empire. The empire was in turmoil because it had no leader. First, most of the nobles in the northern province had died at the hands of the Black Dragon along with King Theoden. Then, a large-scale armed rebellion broke out in the northern province. This rebellion wasn't sudden because it had a historical foundation. Since the young Theoden unified the four seas, the Northland people in the north had joined the German Empire. A large number of nobles trusted by King Theoden had come to the northern province, and these people had become the leaders of the Northland people. Since ancient times, there had been irreconcilable conflicts between the leaders and the people they led. These nobles had lived like princes in the north, and each of them only cared about their own interests. Therefore, the Northland people of the lower class complained. But because of the greatness of Theoden the Great, the Northland people could only swallow their anger. Now that the news of King Theoden's death and a few of the Northland lords had died together with their king, the fear in the hearts of the Northland people had disappeared. Moreover, after the arrival of the Black Dragon, natural disasters continued, demons appeared frequently, and famine was serious. However, the high taxes of the remaining nobles were still a heavy burden on the shoulders of the Northland people. At this time, the resentment of the Northland people was like a powder keg that was about to explode, and only a small spark was needed to explode. And Gravel was this crucial spark. He completely vented the anger accumulated in the hearts of the Northland people. Gravel was originally the leader of a small mercenary group, but he was bullied by the nobles. In the end, because of some things, he decided to join the Empire's resistance army. This Black Dragon incident could be said to be a turning point, and allowed him to seize the opportunity to fan the flames of dissatisfaction to the highest point. In just a few days, his group expanded rapidly, and even many Northland troops joined his camp. He became the commander of the Northern Allied Army. He fought with the Empire's army under the banner of the Northland people, and he sang loudly all the way. So now the North was basically the world of Gravel's Northern Allied Army. We also heard about this from the caravans that came and went, but we don't know the details of the situation. The Empire's royal family was also in a mess. With the death of the king, only the young Prince Kaiser and Princess Isabel were left. Princess Isabel was the heir of the queen who had passed away. She was sent to the north when she was young, so on the day of the Black Dragon's attack, she was not in the capital of Kellendil, but in the northern province. As for Prince Kaiser, for some unknown reason, after the Black Dragon's attack, he and his mother, Queen Darlena, miraculously survived unscathed. The mother and daughter had no one to rely on and became the chess pieces of the generals who now held military power in the empire. These generals had now become the actual rulers of the empire, and they committed crimes and set up a separatist force. At this time, a brave general, Alonso, took the initiative to protect Prince Kaiser and his mother, and fought against the evil forces who wanted to split the empire under the banner of defending the legitimate Derman's royal family. However, the one who really played a decisive role was King Theoden's former magic advisor, the chief archmage, Mors. This powerful mage used various methods to assassinate all the generals who wanted to establish themselves as the king overnight. In this way, the empire's situation began to stabilize. Alonso was appointed as the empire's marshal, in charge of all military power, and also served as the chief commander of the reconstruction of the capital of Kellendil. Thanks to the support of Mors and Alonso, Darlena and Kaiser, the lonely mother and son, were able to live in peace. The rebellion in the northern province provoked the western province. The western province was the territory of the Harus. They were a nomadic people in the desert, and their living habits and appearance were very different from the empire's people. Their skin was dark, and their language was also very different from the empire's common language. So soon, the Harus' own ruler, Rohan, submitted an independence agreement to the empire's royal family. Given the current situation, the empire's royal family had to acquiesce to this agreement. Right now, the stability of the southern province was the key because this was the foundation of the empire. As for the northern province, the empire did not announce that they would give up the sovereignty of this area. In the unfinished palace, looking at the bleak night moon, Darlena and Prince Kaiser, the poor mother and son, thought of the great King Theoden of the past and could not help but shed tears of sorrow. They did not know what to do next and did not know the true purpose of the chief archmage, Mors. Chapter 8. It had been a while since we left the Demon Hunter's Blade's secret base. I wondered how Hist and the others were doing. The old Hist had given us a mission to go to Ursa Town and find out why the undead had suddenly appeared in Bohep. The leader of our three-man team was Natalia. Flance and I had to listen to her orders. In the past few days, we had used various methods to understand the situation after the Empire was attacked by the Black Dragon. It was currently summer, but the temperature in the northern provinces was much cooler. All three of us put on brownish-gray hoods and cloaks to disguise ourselves as travelers. We didn't want to cause trouble, so we kept a low profile along the way. However, some things weren't up to us. For example, we met a group of people who wanted to take advantage of the situation. In the wilderness, not far from Ursa Town, a group of 5 bandits had their eyes on the 3 of us. They saw us as lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The 3 of us were about to reach Ursa Town when 2 men with axes suddenly appeared from behind a tree. One of the men had a scar on his right eye. "Friend, do you want to reach Ursa Town safely?" one of the men asked. "Why are you wasting your breath on them? Tell them to hand over the money, or else we'll kill them. I can tell they're Derman just by looking at their attire." "I hate them the most," the other man with a scar on his eye said impatiently. Flance was a little angry. He didn't care about these scum. Natalia motioned to Flance, telling him not to act rashly. "Hello, brothers. Here are 20 silver dragon coins. Please let us go," Natalia said politely and took out a bag of silver coins and gave it to the man. "That's all? Do you think we're beggars?" The knife-scarred man was furious. However, He changed his mind after seeing Natalia's appearance. Little girl, if you stay with your big brother for a night, I'll let you go. The knife-scarred man revealed a wretched smile. Those words annoyed me. These people really treated us like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. I put my hand on the hilt of the sword at my waist, ready to draw it and fight, but Natalia gave me a hand signal, and I could only give up. Brother, you really think highly of me. But first, take a look at what's behind you. Natalia suddenly pretended to be surprised. The knife-scarred man didn't think much of it. He turned around to take a look, but he couldn't take another look. The moment the scar-faced man turned around, Natalia had already released a powerful flame impact spell, burning the scar-faced man to ashes. Before the other man could react, I pulled out the sword at my waist and cut off his head. This was the consequence of making a professional mercenary their enemy. However, to our surprise, 3 arrows suddenly shot out from the forest. Flance quickly blocked 2 for us with the shield on his back. However, there was another one that flew towards my right arm. Puff. My right arm was injured. Fortunately, the arrow only grazed my skin. Unfortunately, it was a poisonous arrow, and the wound quickly turned black. Are you all right? Natalia asked anxiously when she saw the wound. At this time, Flance had already found the bandits hiding in the forest. He killed 2 of them, and the last one ran away. He found the antidote on one of them. I felt weak all over, and cold sweat kept breaking out on my forehead. My limbs were numb, and I collapsed in Natalia's arms. Hold on a little longer. You'll be fine, Natalia said to me. She didn't have that cold look on her face. Instead, she had the gentleness of a mother. No wonder mothers were the greatest people. They would do anything for their children. I'm coming. I found the antidote. Flance agilely took care of the bandits and quickly ran back. Natalia quickly opened the antidote and poured on my wound. Then, she cast a healing spell on me. Slowly, I felt that my whole body was no longer cold, and I could feel my body again. I often thought, what if I'd been poisoned by a poison that would kill me if it came in contact with blood, or if there was no antidote for it, or if the antidote came in too late? What would have happened? However, there were no ifs in this world. I was me, and I was lucky to have survived. When I opened my eyes and saw Natalia, I still didn't want to get up like this. I really wanted to lie in her arms for a while longer. Cough, cough. It's about time we hit the road. Mercenaries don't die so easily, Flance said awkwardly. Natalia helped me up. I glared at Flance. However, Flance seemed to be avoiding my gaze. Just like that, the 3 of us arrived at our destination, Ursa Town. As soon as we arrived, we saw something lively. The 3 of us decided to go and take a look. Burn him, burn him. Long live the Northern Alliance Army. The townspeople held torches and shouted in the town square. This group of crazy people surrounded the center of the square, and we couldn't see what was happening inside. Long live the Northland! Long live the Northern Alliance Army! Long live General Gravel! The townspeople seemed to be very excited. We squeezed into the crowd and finally saw what was happening. In the center of the square, there was a stake, and there were 4 people tied up on it. Looking at their attire, one was a noble, one was a prostitute, one was a bandit, and the last one looked like an imperial knight. Standing on the stage was a tall, bald Northland man. He was wearing a standard metal armor, and he should be the rumored Northern Alliance Army soldier. He began to speak to the townspeople below the stage. Brothers, comrades, the nobles oppressed us, the bandits exploited us, the prostitutes squeezed us dry, the knights helped the tyrants oppress us, and now, the Northland belongs to us Northland people. The bald man said loudly, Long live the Northland! Long live the Northern Alliance Army! Long live General Gravel! The townspeople shouted again and waved the torches in their hands. The bald man gestured for the Northern Alliance Army soldiers to pour oil on the 4 people, and then he was the first to throw a torch on the 4 people and left the stake. The townspeople also threw torches on the 4 people, and the fire instantly burned the 4 people. They wailed in pain and screamed miserably. The townspeople smiled excitedly. Not long after, only the charred skeletons of the 4 people were left on the stake, and the smell of burning was so strong that people couldn't open their eyes. Even so, the townspeople were still very happy. Long live the Northland! Long live the Northern Alliance Army! Long live General Gravel! The townspeople cheered loudly again. The three of us saw this crazy action with our own eyes, and we knew that the situation in the north wasn't just a rumor. At this moment, the three of us turned to leave, but the bald man and a group of Northern Alliance Army soldiers blocked our way. We didn't know whether they were friend or foe, and we didn't know what to do. However, we were prepared for the worst. Chapter 9. Stranger, my name is Horf. I'm the new Lord of Gorgon. Judging from your attire, you shouldn't be ordinary people, the bald man said. I didn't expect the bald man to be the famous General Horf of the Northern Alliance. We've heard about him before. He was born in the wilderness and was the leader of a bandit group. Later on, he joined the Northern Alliance and made great contributions in the subsequent battles. Now, he's been given the title of Lord of Gorgon by Gravel. In short, he's a Northland citizen. Mr. Horf, my name is Natalia. I'm from Boheap Town. The three of us are just ordinary traveling merchants who sell small things. Natalia's eyes were mesmerizing, especially when she spoke. Beautiful lady, your words can't fool me. My eyes can see through all false pretenses. I won't beat around the bush. I need your help. Horf seemed to be a very direct person. In that case, my lord, please tell us what you need. Natalia didn't hide it anymore. I'm sure you know that the Black Dragon attacked Kellendil. It can be said that it helped the Northern Alliance a lot. But things aren't that simple. Since the Black Dragon incident, strange things have been happening everywhere. For example, Horf hesitated. Undead attack. Natalia reminded the Lord of this. Yes, it's indeed unbelievable. And it's not just that. All kinds of monsters appear frequently. No one knows where they come from or what they're for. We only know that they're really scary and have caused a lot of panic. I can tell that you must be a group of experienced mercenaries from your hidden weapons. I hope that you can help me investigate this matter. I will pay you a large sum of money. Hulf looked more sincere. My lord, I'll report this matter to our leader. Natalia wanted to take the opportunity to talk to the Lord about moving the Demon Hunter's Blade to Grizzly Bear Town. Sure, when you've made up your mind, come find me at the Bauhinia Manor in town. I'll be staying there for a while. Thank you, my lord, Natalia replied politely. Just like that, our mission to scout out the situation in Giant Bear Town is more or less complete. After we parted ways with Horf, we stayed in a hotel in town, which was also a small bar. The name of the inn was Giant Bear Inn. The three of us pushed open the door and prepared to spend the night there. As soon as we entered, the warm atmosphere inside made us feel much more comfortable. In the great hall on the first floor, there were several long tables, and around the fireplace sat a few people who were listening attentively to the minstrel's verses. I listened to a few lines. It was a familiar melody, played by the troubadour on the three-stringed harp, and very skillfully. There were also several people who looked like mercenaries, who were holding large glasses of wine and drinking ale. They chatted with each other, looking very heroic. On the other side of the open space, there were two burly men, bare-chested, who were engaged in a boxing match. The onlookers kept cheering them on, because they had bet money. The lights in the bar weren't bright, but it gave people a kind of warmth, making them feel more relaxed. I saw two children playing Northland war chess on a small round table. It was a very popular game, and the rules weren't complicated. I had learned it from old Hist before, but I couldn't beat him. Looking at the two children playing with relish, I remember the time when I was with Hist. Then, the three of us went to the bar of the inn. Behind the bar, there was a huge brown bear head hanging on the wall, looking very fierce. The owner of the bar was a middle-aged woman who looked very beautiful. She probably had a lot of suitors when she was young. "Hello, how may I help the three of you?" the owner asked with a smile. "Boss, I need 3 rooms and 3 sets of dinner." Natalia took out 6 silver dragon coins and placed them on the bar. "All right, please follow me." "Wait, we only need 2 rooms," Flance, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said. The owner looked at Natalia and then at Flance, not knowing what to do. "Just do as he says." Natalia understood what Flance meant. Just like that, Flance and I stayed in the same room. Luckily, there was an extra bed. I complained that Flance really knew how to save money. A few days later, we returned to Boheap Town. The town was much better than before. People were coming back and starting their daily lives. We met Hist, and his condition was much better than before. I didn't know why, but I felt guilty toward Hist. It was because he lost his arm because of me. Natalia told Hist about the investigation and told him about Horf. When Ivana heard that we were back, she happily came out to see us. She looked very cute. According to old Hist, Ivana was really a genius. It would be a pity if she didn't become a mercenary. I knew that someone who could make old Cesper praise him must have some outstanding points. In just a few days, Avina's archery skills improved by leaps and bounds under his guidance. In the end, after we were fully prepared, we finally decided to move to Ursa Town, and we were very busy. However, at this time, the Empire's royal family was sad. More than half of Kellendal's reconstruction was completed. Tens of thousands of soldiers and laborers worked day and night to make the Empire's palace stand tall in Kellendal once again. King Theoden's body could no longer be found, so they could only use gold to make King Theoden's body and put it in a crystal coffin. The funeral was held at the site of the former Hall of Heroes. It wasn't inferior to the previous summer celebration, but this time, everyone was grieving. Queen Darlena was dressed in white. The tears at the corners of her eyes hadn't dried yet. Although she was dressed in plain clothes, it couldn't hide her beauty. Marshal Alonso and Archmage Moores were still standing beside the queen. They were also the last pillars of support for this tattered empire. Amidst everyone's tears, the people sent off the great emperor of the past. As for us, we finally packed everything we could take with us onto the carriages. Dozens of us left Boheap Town like a huge caravan. Before we left, the townspeople came to see us off. They knew that without us, Boheap Town would have long since ceased to exist. We sped up towards the north. Our goal was Ursa Town. However, something unexpected happened. Just as we were about to reach Ursa Town, a green light flashed and we were surrounded. Furthermore, Chapter 10. I was sure that we were surrounded by a large group of undead, and I recognized the face of one of the undead. That was because the undead had tried to rob us when he was alive, and I killed him with my own hands. Yes, that was the bandit I killed. But for some reason, he was standing in front of me again, but he was no longer human. In an instant, the members of the mercenary group surrounded the non-combatants to protect them. Everyone took out their weapons and prepared to fight the undead. But for some reason, the undead suddenly disappeared in front of us without a trace. We were alarmed for nothing, so we hurried on our way. We didn't want to stay here any longer. But even so, I still couldn't calm down. What was the reason for these dead people to become undead and continue to harm the human world? And why did the black dragon suddenly descend? With so many questions in mind, we arrived at Ursa Town. The guards at the gate stopped us and wanted to interrogate us to prevent us from being spies sent by the Empire. Hist told us to go through the guards' inspection, and after the guards found nothing, they let us go. We temporarily placed the supplies on the carriage in an open space in the town. Hist brought Natalia, Flance, and I to the Lord's residence, Bauhinia Manor. The guards at the manor immediately stopped us when they saw us. Natalia told the guards why we were here, and the guards motioned for us to wait for a while. They wanted to report to the Lord. After a while, the guards who went to report to the Lord came back and indicated that we could enter, but we had to leave our weapons here. Just like that, the four of us arrived at the Lord's room. Horf was seriously looking at the map on the table. When he saw us enter, he put down the map and walked over. "You're the leader of the Demon Hunter's Blade?" Horf was surprised that the old Hist only had one arm. "Yes, I'm the third leader of the Demon Hunter's Blade." "Good. Now I really need your strength." "I'll get straight to the point. Things are like this. Ever since the Black Dragon incident, the areas under our Northern Alliance's jurisdiction have suddenly been filled with monsters. We need a force to help us clear these obstacles so that our army can fight the Empire with peace of mind. You guys are just right for the job. But don't worry, I'll get the local officials to create a bounty list for the monsters they find. The reward will be based on the monster's strength." How about this? Every time you kill a monster, I'll pay you the corresponding commission. How about that? Since Sir Lord is so sincere, we agree. All right, I almost forgot. I have a gift for you. I'm about to leave Great Bear Town. This Bauhinia Manor was originally a noble's private manor, so I'll give it to your mercenary group to use. Also, I will inform the local magistrates to recognize the legitimacy of your organization, but only in Northland. As for the Empire, I won't restrict you as long as you don't help them. All right, Sir Lord, it's decided then. This matter went unexpectedly smoothly, but Hist looked a little worried. At night, all of us temporarily stayed in Great Bear Inn. The entire inn was almost booked by us. I couldn't sleep, so I went to Hist's room. I saw that the old Hist still couldn't change his habit of reading books. You don't seem happy, I said first. Child, you're here. Come, sit down. I found a chair and sat beside Hist. Actually, I just received the news recently. I have a clue about the mystery of your origins. His mood was a little complicated. Really? An old friend of mine sent this information to me through a messaging crystal ball in Partheni Island. He told me that there's a secret buried in the deep sea castle in the Cinca subterranean sea. You have to go there personally to solve the mystery of your origins. How did he know about this? I was a little curious. I knew that the messaging crystal ball was a magic tool made by mages. It could transmit sound and images over a long distance. However, the magic crystals it consumed were very expensive, so it wasn't used unless there was a big problem. He's a great prophet. He can see things that many people can't. You really want me to go there for this prophecy? Maybe it can really answer your question. You have to meet this old friend of mine while you're at it. We need their help. Otherwise, we won't be able to deal with this sudden darkness with our own strength. Who's your old friend? Balins, the current leader of the Mercenary Association. Really? All right, I'll go to Partheni Island. This will be your first bounty mission. Complete it well and report the situation to Balins. When you return, I'll reward you handsomely. Old Secede patted my shoulder and said, That's your first bounty mission. All right, I agreed excitedly to his request. The next day, I bid farewell to everyone and brought my equipment to complete my first bounty mission. The members of the mercenary group looked at me reluctantly. However, most of them were envious that I could contribute to the mercenary group by completing bounty missions so quickly. I didn't see Avina in the crowd. To be honest, I was starting to like this cute girl more and more. I hurried to the Byron Bay Pier in the south. It was now under the control of the Northern Alliance. Then, I boarded the merchant ship to Partheni Island. I still couldn't forget what old Hist said to me before I left. Take care of yourself. This is your first time completing a mission alone. You have to be careful. As for this mission, you just have to bring this letter to Balins. He'll tell you what to do next. I waved goodbye to everyone who was sending me off. I suppressed my emotions. I had to be strong. Don't worry, I'll definitely return successfully. The ship had already sailed far away from the pier. I was wondering where Avina had gone. How could she not appear? At this moment, a slender hand was placed on my back. Why are you so sad? I turned around. It was Avina. I was overjoyed. I didn't expect her to come. You did old Hist agree? Don't you welcome me? President Secede agreed to it. And he even asked me to protect you. Haha. Thank you so much for protecting me. I went forward and hugged Avina's waist. You're so annoying. I'm going to ignore you. Avina blushed like a ripe apple. Hee hee, I didn't expect to be accompanied by such a beauty on this mission. I joked. If you continue like this, I'm going to ignore you, Avina said shyly. Just like that, we embarked on our journey to Partheni Island. Chapter 11. The cool sea breeze blew from the deck. Avina and I stood together on the deck, letting the sea breeze caress our cheeks. Suddenly, I felt a strong, murderous intent from afar. Not good, it's the Singhati pirates. At this moment, the ship's alarm was rung by the observer on the watchtower. Following the clanging of the bell, the guards on the ship rushed to the deck, ready to enter the battle. As I stood on the deck and looked into the distance, I saw two large sailing ships suddenly break through the mist and appear before us. That's right, it was the Singhati pirates' ship. That's because the black skull flag fluttered at the top of the mast. Boom, boom, boom. On the two large sailing ships, the pirates pushed out several ballistas and began to unscrupulously fire at our ship. Since the ship I was on wasn't a warship, but an ordinary merchant ship, there weren't any heavy weapons on the ship. If the Northern Alliance Army hadn't heard of the Singhati pirates' infamy, perhaps the number of guards on the ship would have been reduced by half. At this moment, I was like the majority of the people, desperately holding on to the sturdy objects around me, afraid that I would be thrown off by the swaying ship. The scene on the ship was already chaotic. The Northern Alliance Army soldiers were all dizzy from being thrown off. Soon, the pirates stopped firing and released iron cannons at the ship. I saw a huge iron chain with barbs at the tip shoot towards the ship I was on. The pirate ship began to close in on the ship I was on. Moreover, the sides of the two ships had already merged. The pirates whistled as they jumped from their ship onto the ship I was on, or climbed over from the ropes. A bloody battle was about to unfold. However, the other pirate ship didn't have any intention of joining the battle. It was only watching the battle from a distance. Northern Alliance Army soldiers, kill these filthy pirates, the commander on the ship said to the Northern Alliance Army soldiers on the ship. Kill them all. However, on the other side, a handsome man stood on the pirate ship and said to the pirates behind him. Immediately, the pirates charged towards the fully armed Northern Alliance Army soldiers as if they had gone mad. Non-combatants returned to the cabin. The commander of the Northern Alliance Army ordered the civilians on the deck. Other than those who were already on the ground, the rest of the people rushed towards the cabin entrance. I also wanted to run back to the cabin, but the situation was too chaotic. No, the ambush just now caused me to lose Avina. I have to find Avina. The battle on the deck had already begun to heat up, and the pirates currently had the upper hand. An endless stream of pirates jumped from their ships to join the battle, and the Northern Alliance Army's guards began to be overwhelmed. At the same time, a few pirates had their chests pierced by the pikes of the Northern Alliance Army. There were also pirates who stood not far away and shot arrows at the Northern Alliance Army guards, but they were blocked by the guards who were usually well-trained with shields. The handsome man who seemed to be the leader of the pirates was currently standing on the pirate ship, smiling as he watched the bloody battle in front of him. From time to time, a few pirates would rush into the middle of the guards and fight. With the advantage in numbers, the pirates quickly forced the guards to a corner of the deck. They seemed to be waiting for the handsome pirate's orders. Leave no one alive. The handsome man sentenced the Northern Alliance Army soldiers to death, and the pirates immediately rushed towards the retreating Northern Alliance Army's guards. In a moment, the guards' heads fell to the ground, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. I witnessed this bloody scene from a corner. My body was out of control due to fear, but my heart told me that I had to protect Avina. In the end, only the Northern Alliance Army's commander and 2 guards were left standing on the deck. The rest of the guards were killed by the pirates. The commander wanted to apologize with his life, but after thinking about it, he gave up. He threw his weapon on the ground and prepared to surrender to the pirates. At this time, the handsome man walked over, and the pirates made a path for him. The handsome man walked in front of the commander, and with a strange smile, he pulled out the sharp scimitar at his waist. 2 tall and strong pirates saw this, and immediately pressed the commander down to kneel in front of the handsome man. Remember, I am the Singhati pirate leader that you are looking for, Lofis. Puff! The handsome man called Lofis beheaded the commander, and the blood splashed on the faces of the remaining 2 guards. The 2 guards felt an unprecedented fear. They began to be afraid. They finally understood why the Singhati pirates were the masters of this sea area, but it was too late. The pirates rushed forward and chopped the remaining 2 Northern Alliance Army's guards into meat paste. I almost vomited, but I held it back. At this moment, the fear in my heart had reached its peak. Under the command of the handsome man, the pirates rushed into the cabin and caught all the ordinary people on the deck. I was no exception. I was chased into the crowd by the pirates, and I desperately tried to find Avina's trace. At this time, a captured aristocrat saw the corpses all over the deck, and his legs turned to jelly. Perhaps the pirates smelled the urine coming from the aristocrat's body and kicked him to the ground. The aristocrat also fell on the deck like a dead dog. It was really a phoenix that had fallen to the ground. Take all these captives to the ship, and this ship will be yours. You are now official Singati pirates, the pirate leader called Lofi said. The pirates heard this and cheered. They tied our hands and escorted us to the pirate ship that they came from. Lofi's appointed a strong pirate as the captain of the newly seized pirate ship and returned to their previous pirate ship. These guys who had just officially become Singati pirates immediately began to clean up the corpses on the ship under the leadership of the new captain. They threw these corpses into the sea and let the corpses become fish food. I and the others were taken to the cabin of another pirate ship. There was a huge prison there, and we were locked in. There were some people that the pirates had captured before in the prison, and they were all women. At this time, I saw Avina and other female captives being chased over. I shouted excitedly and was knocked down to the ground by a heavy punch from the pirate. On the sea, the original 2 pirate ships and a merchant ship that we had just taken, a total of 3 ships, began to sail towards the east. The black skull flag fluttered on the mast. In the cabin, I only felt that the surroundings were dark. All kinds of unpleasant smells assailed my nostrils, and I felt very uncomfortable. I looked at the women who had been in the prison before. Most of them were young and beautiful, and their clothes were shabby. But I paid more attention to Avina, afraid that something would happen to her. Soon, I adapted to the environment here. I saw the aristocrat curled up into a ball and hid in a corner. Clearly, his spirit was stimulated. After sailing for about a day, a pirate brought a bucket of food that couldn't be called food. Everyone fought for it, and the pirate laughed at the side. Suddenly, in my sleep, I felt the hull of the ship shake violently. But after a while, the shaking disappeared and the hull returned to normal. In the morning, several pirates arrived at the prison. They held black leather whips in their hands, as if they were the messengers of death. You come with me. The pirate pointed to more than 10 male captives to follow him, and this included me. When I followed the pirate to the deck, the dazzling sunlight made my eyes hurt. It seemed that bad luck was really around us. Chapter 12. I came to the deck, and I knew that the time for the death sentence was coming. Sure enough, the pirates pushed me to the ground. At the same time, I saw that the nobleman was delirious and began to talk nonsense. Let me go, I have no money. The nobleman kept talking. Like a fly. The handsome pirate leader showed a disgusted expression. A tall pirate understood the leader's meaning and raised the sharpened beheading knife above his head. Don't kill me. Before the nobleman could finish his words, his head fell to the ground with a pu sound. The tall pirate in charge of the executioner was wiping the blood-stained beheading knife. Several other pirates dragged the nobleman's body out and threw it into the sea to feed the fish. Where are you from? The handsome pirate leader asked the person beside me. I am from the Northland. I have been drifting on the sea since I was young. After seeing the scene just now, the person didn't have the slightest timidity. Very well, I will now give you 2 choices. The first is, immediately remove your head. The second is, the man who was asked choked. He couldn't wait to know what the second choice was. The second choice is to join us, the Singa pirates, and become one of us. I choose the second choice. I want to become a pirate. The man almost didn't think much and chose the second choice. In the face of death, no morality can withstand the test. Well, I will fulfill your wish. But you have to pass a test, and that is to kill the person beside you. No, he is innocent. What? Are you going back on your words? The 2 pirates untied the rope that tied the man and threw him a blood-stained machete. The man hesitated, but he still steeled his heart and raised the machete towards me beside him. I'm sorry, the Northland man said to me. It was the first time in my life that I was so close to death, but I didn't feel the slightest fear. Instead, I was somewhat indifferent. The rope that tied me was also untied by the pirates, and they also threw me a machete. To be fair, your opponent is the same as you. The pirate leader said to the man, What is this? This was a kind of mockery. This group of pirates was watching a bloody show brought to them by two strangers. The man's eyes turned red. In order to survive, he rushed at me with a knife. "I will make you regret giving me a weapon," I said to myself as I raised my sword to meet him. I dodged and gave the Northland man a backhand slash, cutting off his leg. At this moment, even Lofi's, who was sitting on the chair, was surprised. But soon after, a strange smile appeared on his face. I gradually lost consciousness. The man who wanted to kill me didn't know what to do, but he still held the knife tightly and slashed at me. But who would have thought that I would be like a demon from hell, staring at that man with my red eyes? The man was so scared that he threw the knife to the ground. His body was cut open by me. Before he died, the man kept howling in pain. His howls were so miserable that the pirates felt their scalps go numb. "Interesting," the handsome Lofi said. At this moment, I was like a demon killing the pirates. The pirates couldn't resist and could only retreat. A group of trash. Lofi's walked down from the chair. He decided to meet me. The handsome man pulled out the curved sword from his waist and nimbly jumped behind me. However, at that moment, my body collapsed on the deck due to malnutrition for a long time. "Sigh, this is really boring. I thought I could meet a decent opponent," Lofi said and put the curved sword back at his waist. "Take him back. Watch over him well. Don't let him die." The two pirates worked together to carry the unconscious me back to the prison. They were also shocked by my performance. As for the other captives, the handsome leader let them kill each other. The winner would have the opportunity to become a Singa pirate, and the loser would only have a road to death. After half a day, the pirates saw a small island not far away. They wanted to go up and resupply, so the pirate ship sailed towards the small island. But suddenly, there was a loud bang. The pirate ship seemed to have hit a reef. The hull began to shake violently. The pirates on the deck began to panic because they knew something was about to appear. In the prison under the cabin, the male and female captives' hands and feet were tied, so they couldn't move. Many of the captives hit their heads because of the shaking of the ship. At this time, I regained some consciousness. I only heard the words, "The sea monster is coming," and then fainted again. What will come will come. Lofi's pulled out the two swords at his waist. He stood on the guardrail of the deck and waited for the thing that was about to appear. The pirates were swaying left and right. Only Lofi stood on the guardrail without shaking. Finally, a huge tentacle appeared on the sea. Then, the second tentacle, the third tentacle, and the fourth tentacle also appeared one after another. In front of the huge tentacle, humans were as small as sand. Several huge tentacles smashed down from the sky, almost smashing the pirate ship in half. As for the other two pirate ships, when they saw such a huge sea monster, they immediately changed their course. But it was too late. The sea monster stretched out 4 more tentacles from the bottom of the sea. Each pirate ship was entangled by 2 tentacles. 2 pirate ships were dragged into the water in an instant. Some of the pirates jumped into the water to escape. Some didn't even have time to react and directly drowned. Now, only the broken pirate ship I was on was left on the sea. Lofi's jumped from the deck to one of the tentacles. Some of the pirates who were still conscious saw that their leader's strength was extraordinary. When Lofi's 2 swords fiercely stabbed into the sea monster's thick tentacle, a fishy smell of blood sprayed out. The sea monster crazily swung its tentacles in pain, wanting to smash the ship. Lofi shouted, and a purple light directly cut off the injured tentacle. Now, the sea monster only had 7 tentacles left. The sea monster rolled in the sea in pain, and finally slowly sank into the water. Lofi's jumped back to the broken deck, just as he knelt on one knee to rest. Suddenly, a tentacle came out of the water and swept Lofi's and the deck near him into the sea. After a while, only a dark red sea could be seen. The sea monster's second tentacle was also cut off. The sea monster suffered a big loss and didn't dare to come out of the sea again. Lofi's was also nowhere to be found. Except for the pirates who fell into the sea, the rest of the pirates on the deck were dead. In this way, the pirate ship full of corpses drifted to the island not far away. Night began to fall. No one knew what would happen tomorrow. Chapter 13. I slowly opened my eyes and recalled everything that had happened. From encountering the pirates, to being kidnapped by the pirates, to encountering the sea monster on the pirate ship. Everything was shocking to me. I didn't expect it to be such an extraordinary journey. I looked at the corpses around me. They were all captives of the pirates. Since my hands were still tied, I stood up with difficulty. Looking around, I found that the hull of the ship had become dilapidated after being ravaged by the sea monster. The cabin was full of dead bodies, which made me feel sick. Not far away, there was a spear stuck in the ground. Obviously, it was left behind when the pirates fought the sea monster. I turned around and stretched the rope that bound me to the tip of the spear. Finally, I was free. When I let go of my red hands, I felt an indescribable sense of freedom. The people in the cabin didn't seem to have died for a long time because there was no smell of corpses in the cabin. I didn't stop. I immediately ran to the deck to see what had happened. Since the hull was tilted, it took me some effort to get to the deck. Standing on the tilted deck, I finally understood my current situation. It turned out that the pirate ship had run aground on the beach of Small Island. Perhaps it was a blessing in disguise. The cruelty of reality was in front of me. My first thought was to go to the cabin to find Avina. All that was left of the pirate ship was an empty shell. The things inside had long been washed clean by the seawater. I looked for Avina among the corpses. On a box next to a puddle of water, I saw a sled dog. It should be a noble's pet, which had been stolen by the pirates. The sled dog was slightly injured. When it saw me, it only barked twice. I picked up the box and the sled dog. Then, I continued to look for Avina. I thought that Avina wouldn't be dead. Among the corpses, I finally found the unconscious Avina. I walked to Avina, but at that moment, the cabin suddenly sank. Not good. I don't know what happened outside. I immediately put down the sled dog and the box. Then, I ran to Avina and carried her on my back. Then I picked up the sled dog and the box and trudged up to the deck. With great difficulty, I reached the sloping deck and saw that the tide was rising. At this rate, the ship would be swept into the ocean. I immediately placed the unconscious Avina and the sled dog on the shore far away from the beach. Then, I ran back to the damaged pirate ship. Now, time was of the essence. Once the tide rose, the damaged pirate ship could be completely buried in the sea. I entered the cabin one more time. While looking for survivors, I kept moving the materials out of the ship. After more than 3 hours of struggle, I finally managed to move most of the things out of the ship, except for the corpses. The only thing I regret is that Avina and I are the only ones who survived. By the time I got out of the cabin for the last time, I was out of breath. However, at this time, the sea had risen very high, and the hull of the ship began to move slightly with the sea. I managed to slide from the deck to the beach, and my thirst was unbearable. In less than half an hour, the damaged pirate ship finally broke apart under the waves and was swept into the deep sea. I looked at the sky and saw that it was getting late. Finding a place to stay for the night was the most important thing. I still didn't know if there were fierce beasts on this nameless island, but I didn't have any expectations. These years of wilderness survival training had made me a mercenary, very confident in surviving. First, I had to build a temporary shelter, preferably near a water source. No matter what, as long as I could survive the first night, I would slowly get better. Fortunately, it didn't rain on the first night. Avina, the sled dog, and I safely spent the first night under the shelter I built. The next day, I went to the dense forest behind the beach to look for fresh water to drink. Fortunately, there was a small stream not far from the beach, and the water was very sweet. I immediately satisfied my craving for water. After drinking, I used the container I found on the ship to get some water for Avina. I gave Avina some water, but Avina was still unconscious. I touched Avina's forehead and found that Avina had a fever. What should I do? Without medicine in the wild, it was very difficult to treat a sick person. The sled dog kept barking on the side. At this time, the sky started to drizzle. Not good. I have to find a place to hide from the rain. I used the canvas I pulled from the ship to cover the goods. I also took some food and water from the ship, some canvas, and left the coast with Avina on my back. The sled dog followed behind me. After a while, The light rain turned into a heavy rain. I came to a cave next to the stream. The cave was very dark. At this time, I felt extremely cold. I used the axe I found on the ship to chop a few dry wooden boxes for wood. But how could I make a fire? In a hurry, I carefully began to drill wood to make a fire. This was a test of skill. But after a Herculean effort, I finally made a spark. I put the flame on the dry things I had prepared in advance and slowly lit the fire. The burning firewood emitted heat, and the cave was suddenly illuminated. It was raining heavily outside. I thought that Avina and I wouldn't have to worry about being frozen to death. I took off my clothes and covered Avina with them. I was worried that Avina would catch a cold again. In this way, I gradually fell asleep while guarding the fire. On the third day on the island, the first ray of sunlight shone into the cave next to the stream. I rubbed my eyes and stretched. Avina was still unconscious, which made me a little worried. At the same time, I realized that I still had a lot of work to do. Last night's heavy rain filled the forest with the fragrance of the earth. I walked on the moist ground to find some herbs to treat Avina's illness. Perhaps it was because of the heavy rain, but today's weather was particularly clear. I went to the beach where the goods were stored. I had to take a good inventory of the goods that I had saved. Fortunately, I had wrapped the goods in canvas in advance, so they weren't soaked by the heavy rain last night. I took a look and picked out the most useful things. Among all the things, I was most satisfied with the axe that I used to chop the coffin last night. In this pile of goods, there were a lot of preserved fruits, bacon, bread, and other foods. There were also 2 wooden barrels filled with fresh water. As for the herbs, I didn't find any. I found quite a number of pirate weapons in a long wooden crate among the goods. However, in this pile of goods, I found clothes the least. It didn't matter. After all, there was only me and Avina on this deserted island. I moved the food and water back to the cave next to the stream. At this time, Avina was in a semi-conscious state. Avina seemed to be thirsty. I immediately opened the wooden barrel of fresh water and let Avina drink a few mouthfuls. After drinking some water, Avina's condition improved significantly. Seeing that Avina's condition had stabilized, I continued to look for herbs for Avina. I relied on the rich wilderness survival knowledge that I had learned from the old hist to easily find the herbs in this forest. Those poisonous grasses, poisonous insects, and so on, I can identify them at a glance and keep a respectful distance from them. After picking some usable wild fruits, I finally found a medicinal herb called chamomile. This chamomile has the effect of clearing heat and detoxifying, and it also has the effect of raising one's spirit. Wait for me, Avina. I'll heal you. Chapter 14. I returned to the cave with the things I had gathered. The sled dog barked when it saw me return. After I came back, I immediately crushed the chamomile and let AI Wayna drink its juice. Perhaps it was because the juice was a little spicy, but Avina didn't want to drink it. It's okay. It will make your fever go down faster. I took a cup and filled it with water. I let Avina drink it with the juice. Avina knew that I wouldn't harm her. Although the juice was a little spicy, Avina still drank it with the water. However, a painful expression appeared on her face. After drinking the juice and water of the chamomile, I let Avina lie down and rest for a while. I took the sled dog to look for food. I also gave the sled dog a name, Sim. A few days later, Avina finally came back to life under my care. In the past few days, I had tidied up the cave and made it look like a warm nest. I had also sorted out the goods we had saved from the pirate ship and put them in the cave. Avina was in charge of organizing the things we needed in the cave. As usual, I went hunting in the forest with the bow and the axe I had picked up from the pirate ship. After these few days, I understood this island. There weren't any fierce beasts on this island. However, we were all depressed and didn't know when we would be able to leave this island. Today, I was walking in the thick forest with Sim following behind me. Look, it's a wild pheasant. I was happy because tonight's dinner was settled. I followed the wild pheasant and quietly aimed my bow and arrow at it. Whoosh! The arrow flew towards the pheasant, but unfortunately, it didn't hit. The pheasant sensed the danger and flapped its wings to jump away. The reason why it jumped was because the height and distance of the wild pheasant could not be called flying in the true sense. I didn't care too much. I couldn't let the pheasant fly away. Sim called out twice and quickly ran towards the pheasant. The pheasant seemed to stay there, but when I pounced on it, it jumped away. Even the sled dog, Sim, couldn't catch the pheasant. It seemed that the pheasant was quite agile. I had no choice but to give up. However, when I thought about the roasted pheasant's leg, I almost drooled. That was why I wasn't willing to give up. I continued to walk deeper into the forest while Sim led the way. Suddenly, Sim called out several times. I guess that Sim must have found something, so I quickly ran forward. As expected, Sim found a huge egg. It was a little bigger than an ostrich egg. There were many sparkling patterns on the egg's surface. When I saw the egg in the middle of the forest, I couldn't help but be surprised. There was nothing around it. It didn't look like the egg of a large bird. I held the egg in my hands. It felt heavy, but it was still heavy. I took a closer look at the surface of the egg and found that there was a golden sheen on the surface of the egg. I don't care. Let's bring it back first. I put the egg in a cloth bag and walked towards the cave next to the stream. After a while, I returned to the cave. I'm back. Look what I brought back for you. Avina came out when she heard that I was back. We'll eat it tonight. It should taste good. I started a fire to cook. When Avina saw the egg, she was surprised. You can't eat it, Avina said. We can't eat this egg. I've seen this kind of egg in Mayfair. Avina pointed at the egg in my hand. I heard that it's the egg of a demonic beast. A demonic beast's egg? I was so hungry that I didn't notice that it was a demonic beast's egg, even though I was a mercenary. Who knows? We might even get a powerful summoned beast after it hatches. Awina's face was filled with longing for the egg. All right, we won't eat this egg. What are we going to eat tonight? Let's eat this. Avina returned to the cave and came out with 2 coconuts in her hands. There are coconuts on this island. It seems that this is a tropical island. When you went hunting today, I found a few coconut trees on the east side of the island. I picked a few and brought them back. The trees are so tall. How did you pick them? It's a secret. What's so mysterious about it? Lyric, hurry up and open the coconuts. Otherwise, you won't get share. Avina pretended to be angry. You're so ungrateful. I joked. You're the worst. Avina jumped into my arms shyly. Just like that, night fell. Under the bright moonlight, Iwina and I sat on the beach, each holding a coconut. We told each other our stories while Sim lay beside us, wagging her tail from time to time. It was a heartwarming and romantic scene. Ever since I picked up the demonic beast's egg, Avina had something to do every day. She found some dry grass and made a small nest. Then, she put the egg on it to incubate. On the other hand, I took Sim to hunt in the forest on the island. We spent the whole morning hunting. I didn't get anything. I didn't catch any prey. It seems that we can only eat coconuts for lunch. I brought Sim back to the cave. You're back, Avina said when she saw me. Oh, I didn't catch anything today. Let's go to the beach to catch fish in the afternoon. Avina handed me a homemade harpoon. Sure, I'll show you my skills. Stop bragging. Why didn't you catch anything in the morning? Avina smiled. She looked very cute. Avina's words always hit the nail on the head. I scratched my head embarrassedly. Night fell, and the sunset glow on the horizon revealed its last trace of red. It was the 6th night since I left the mercenary group. The stars in the sky were faintly discernible. The moon was like a shy girl who refused to appear. Avina and I sat around a bonfire. There was a pot over the bonfire. The fish soup was made from the fish we caught with the harpoon in the afternoon. The heat from the pot dispelled the chill of the night by the sea. I could hear a few unknown seabirds chirping in the distance. I didn't expect you to be so good at cooking. I picked up the spoon and scooped a spoonful of fish soup. Thank you for your compliment. There used to be someone who always praised my cooking when I was at home. Avina looked at me with a smile. Her smile was so refreshing. Hurry up and drink the fish soup. Otherwise, it won't taste good. She picked up the bowl and scooped a bowl of fish soup for me. Don't worry. I will find a way to leave this island, I suddenly said. At this moment, the sea was splashing on the beach. The bonfire was crackling. Okay. Avina looked at me with her watery eyes. She knew I would do as I said. I remembered the letter High Side the Elder had given me before we left. We still had to complete the mission the old Hist gave us. We wouldn't die here for no reason. Chapter 15. Let me sing you a song. Avina couldn't suppress her feelings and started singing a folk song from her hometown. Her melodious voice was like a shooting star that pierced through the silent night sky. Sometimes it was like a flowing stream, and sometimes it was like a gentle breeze caressing the grass. I couldn't forget it for a long time. Hearing this beautiful song, I felt much more energetic. The dark clouds in my heart seemed to have dissipated with the wind. It's so beautiful. This is the most beautiful song I've heard in my life. That night, the two of us were young and alone on this strange island. A trace of emotion lingered in our hearts. Ever since the Black Dragon incident, Avina and I had come this far. It really wasn't easy. Thus, on this beautiful silver-white beach, Avina and I tasted the most beautiful forbidden fruit of mankind for the first time. A few days later, the magical beast egg I picked up still didn't show any signs of movement. What kind of egg is this? Could it be a dragon egg? I'm not sure. I only saw a similar egg in Mayfair's place. She told me that it was a magical beast egg. Avina was also confused. We had no choice but to ignore the egg. We continued to think of a way to escape while hunting. The sun and rain from the past few days of hunting had caused my clothes to become tattered and tattered. Fortunately, I found some cloth on the stranded pirate ship. It was also thanks to Avina that I wasn't naked now. Today, I went hunting in the forest as usual. Sometimes I even wanted to live like this forever. The time I spent with the person I loved was the happiest time of my life. But just as I was chasing a wild rabbit with Sim, a loud sound came from the stream. Not good, it's Avina. I ran towards the stream with all my might. Sim followed me. I saw that the trees beside the stream had been neatly cut down from middle. The place where Avina and I lived was also messed up. However, there was no sign of Avina. There were bottles and jars everywhere, and even some clothes were scattered on the ground. Suddenly, a huge crab pincer fell from the sky. The pincer was as long as 2 or 3 Demeters, German Empire's measurement system, and nearly 50 centimeters thick. Sim rushed forward first, but was sent flying by the crab pincer. At this time, the entire body of the crab also appeared from behind the rock. This giant crab was at least 5 or 6 demi tall, and its grayish-black shell made one's hair stand on end. I saw another person clamped on the crab's other pincer. It was Avina. Avina's body was enveloped in a light blue glow, preventing the pincers from harming Avina. However, Avina's face was pale, and she looked like she could not hold on any longer. I didn't know what kind of magic it was, but I knew I had to save Avina as soon as possible. Facing such a huge monster, I couldn't suppress the fear in my heart, and my body started to lose control. Sim, who had been sent flying to the side, crawled up with difficulty and barked at the giant crab again. The blue glow enveloping Avina's body gradually dimmed, and I started to feel like I was going crazy. However, I didn't even have time to think. Another huge crab pincer fell from the sky, just a hair's breadth away from me. You must die. My eyes emitted a dark red glow. The huge crab pincer fell from the sky again, just a hair's breadth away from me. However, my body suddenly ignited in flames. I didn't know where I got the strength, but I caught the pincer. The giant crab also seemed to feel this powerful force, and it threw Avina, who was on the other pincer, aside. The 2 huge pincers attacked me at the same time. I didn't dodge, but grabbed both pincers with both hands. You dared to hurt Avina. You must die. That was the only thing I said. Avina was thrown to the ground. When she heard my words, she felt a lump in her throat, and tears rolled down her cheeks. You must be careful, Lyric. I roared in pain. The flames on my body went out of control, and it was even hotter than before. The grayish-black pincers started to change color under the scorching flames, and a burnt smell assailed my nostrils. The giant crab was at a disadvantage. It waved its pincers wildly, and I was knocked to the ground. However, I immediately stood up and jumped onto the giant crab's shell. I used my burning fist to smash the giant crab's shell. The giant crab let out a weird sound, and everything around it was destroyed by the giant crab. Luckily, Avina managed to dodge in time. Otherwise, she would have been torn into pieces by the crazy giant crab. Finally, a crack appeared on the giant crab's shell, which was harder than a rock. I didn't intend to stop. Asterisk bang. Asterisk the giant crab's shell cracked open, and the crab meat inside was instantly burned white by the flames. The giant crab gradually lost its strength, and it started to fall. I still didn't stop. The snow-white crab meat scattered in all directions, bringing with it an aroma. The giant crab wanted to struggle one last time, but it died helplessly. That's enough, Lyric. Stop. Avina stood in front of the crazy me, crying and begging me. I was about to raise my hand to hit Avina away, but the flames gradually extinguished. I finally stopped, and I collapsed in front of Avina like sand. At that moment, smoke was rising from my body, and I was peacefully lying on the beach. Avina was next to me, and she used a towel soaked in water to wipe the ashes off my body. Lyric, you have to wake up. At first, she was just sobbing, but in the end, it turned into a loud cry. Avina recalled what had just happened, and she was still scared. I didn't expect my body to contain such a terrifying power. What was going on? Why did I suddenly become like this? Avina wiped the ashes off my face, and she moistened my lips with water. Don't hurt me, Avina, I muttered. I had already lost consciousness, and I didn't know what I was doing. Suddenly, Avina heard me mumble this sentence in my drowsy state. I didn't know if I should be happy or sad. Around 2 days later, I was finally able to stand up. For the past 2 days, Avina had been taking care of me every minute of the day. AI Wayna was the one who found the food and water for the past few days. She finally understood how difficult it was to do all this. Avina, thank you, I said weakly. Lyric, it's great that you can recover. Avina, let's build a raft and leave this place. Okay, in the next few days, Avina and I worked on the plan to escape the island. We picked almost all the coconuts, and we used wood to build a simple raft. Avina even sewed the canvas, and I used the canvas to make a sail for the raft. In the end, we worked together to build the raft. Avina brought the coconuts and the magical beast egg onto the raft, and she also brought Sim with her. On a moonlit night, with a gentle breeze on the sea, we drove the raft away from the island. Under the wind, the raft slowly drifted on the sea. Fortunately, the wind and waves weren't strong, and the sea was calm. Suddenly, a trace of green light came from the Black Sea. Chapter 16. The green light slowly brightened. I took a closer look and realized that it was a huge ship shrouded in green light. There was a line of words painted on the hull of the ship with some strange dye. The dye emitted a faint green light in the night like a ghost. When I got closer, I saw that the line read, "Reveal your true form under the moonlight." What does that mean? I was puzzled. While I was hesitating, a small boat descended from the huge ship. Avina and I jumped onto the boat with great difficulty. Then, the boat was raised to the deck. I didn't know why, but Sim kept howling from the beginning. I had to ask Avina to put her into the magic space. Avina had used the summoning magic that High Side the Elder had taught her and signed a soul contract with Sim. So, Sim was now Avina's summoned beast. When I got on the deck, I was stunned by the scene in front of me. On the deck, dozens of young and beautiful men and women were singing and dancing to the accompaniment of the music. The surrounding tables were filled with all kinds of delicacies and fine wine. The sky was covered in thick, dark clouds, but the ship was brightly lit. However, the lights were the strangest green. "Would you like some champagne?" one of the ship's attendants asked me. "Thank you." I took 2 glasses of wine and handed one of them to Avina. But at this moment, the moon that was covered by the dark clouds peeked through the cracks. The moonlight shone on the waiter's face. His red and tender skin instantly turned into dry white bones. I was startled, and the cup in my hand slipped out of my hand unconsciously. The dark clouds covered the moonlight again, and the waiter's face returned to normal. Are you not feeling well? Avina asked with concern. I'm fine. Maybe I'm too tired. Sir, would you like any other service? The waiter asked politely. No, thank you. At the party, people were still singing and dancing. It was a cheerful scene. Suddenly, all the lights in the party went out. Pop! A beam of light focused below Avina and me. A man walked out from the captain's room. He was wearing the captain's uniform and looked handsome. Lofies? I exclaimed in surprise. Everyone's gaze focused on me. That's right, I'm the leader of the Singhati pirates, Lofies. Avina, things don't look good, I reminded her. Suddenly, the dark clouds that shrouded the moon dissipated without anyone noticing. I finally saw the true faces of these people, and Avina's face turned pale with fright. Those young and beautiful men and women were not humans at all, but a group of repulsive sea ghosts. The ghastly white skeleton's eyeballs fell to the ground, and its flesh and blood splattered everywhere. I want him alive. Lofies turned around and saw that the left side of his face had already turned into white bone. The sea ghosts lunged at Avina and me. My weapon had been taken away by the staff when we boarded the ship. I ran on the deck with Avina. We had to escape back to the small boat. A few ferocious-looking sea ghosts blocked our way. I threw a punch at them, but they easily caught it. Then, the surrounding sea ghosts immediately tied me and AI Wayna up. Bring him to me. Under Lofi's command, the sea ghosts brought Avina and I, who were tied up, to him. Then, the sky was covered in dark clouds again. Lofi still had his handsome face, and his green hair made him look very capable. Don't you want to know why I am here? Lofi's asked proudly. What does this have to do with us? I knew that he had disappeared after the fight with the sea monsters. I had never expected him to show up here. Haha. I didn't expect to see such a beautiful woman on my ship. Then, Lofi's lifted Avina's face. Avina glared at Lofi's while I scolded him. You be asterisk starred, don't touch Avina. Oh, do you think I won't touch her just because you say so? Also, let me tell you, I love it when people call me AB asterisk starred. Haha. At this moment, no one noticed that in the corner, Avina had accidentally dropped the magical beast egg we had picked up when she was caught by the sea ghost. The demonic beast egg was glowing strangely. At first, it was pale gold. Then it turned blue, red, green, yellow, purple, pink, and finally, it turned into a blinding white. Crack, crack. Cracks finally appeared on the surface of the magical beast egg with sparkling and translucent patterns. Then, before everyone could react, Avina began to chant an incantation that I couldn't understand. Then, her body and the demonic beast glowed with pale blue light at the same time. Soul contract? I didn't expect you to know summoning magic. Lofi's was shocked. Then, I looked at the baby beast that had hatched from the demonic beast egg. It was a cute, furry baby beast with wings. The baby beast flapped its wings a few times. It looked like it didn't even know how to fly. However, it looked really cute. Iwina immediately used summoning magic to summon the cub into the magic space. I suddenly roared in pain and my body started to lose control. Then, flames started to burn on the surface of my body. In an instant, the ropes that tied me up were burned into ashes. My eyes were red and Lofi's was stunned. The sea ghosts pounced at me. Then, Avina took the chance to untie the ropes on her body. My fists were burning with flames, and I smashed the sea ghosts into pieces. In a short while, I had killed over 10 sea ghosts. Interesting. Lofi smirked. He pulled out the 2 scimitars by his waist, and a purple glow appeared on the blades again, just like when we had fought against the sea monsters the other day. Dang, dang, dang. My fists clashed with Lofi's purple blades, and there was a clanging sound. My fists were as hard as the blades. Avina wanted to help me, but she knew that she would only be a burden to me. Avina took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention and ran to the boat on the deck. She slowly lowered the ropes. On the other side, Lofi's and I were in the midst of a fierce fight. Come to me, Lyric. Avina shouted at me after she was done with her preparations. Trying to run? Lofi's leaped and cut the ropes that were holding the boat. Help! Avina, and the boat fell into the vast sea. I watched as Avina fell into the sea and became even crazier. I fought Lofies with my fists, and Lofies started to feel tired. However, my situation wasn't any better. The flames gradually dimmed, and I lost my strength. I fell limp, and I lost my center of gravity and fell into the sea. I regained my consciousness. In a daze, I saw a line of words painted with a strange dye on the other side of the boat. Crossing the soul in the sea. It turned out that the two sentences read, crossing the soul in the sea, revealing your true form under the moonlight. With a plop, I fell into the ice-cold sea water. Chapter 17. I opened my eyes and instantly felt a sharp pain in my head. I looked around and realized that I was in an air bubble. I was surrounded by seawater as though I was at the bottom of the sea. The air bubble seemed to be able to absorb the oxygen in the seawater to ensure that I wouldn't suffocate to death. I didn't know who was kind enough to save my life. "Hello, human. My name is Alice. Are you feeling better?" A creature with the upper body of a human girl and the lower body of a mermaid asked me. I had heard of this strange race before. They were called mermaids, and their mermaids were called mermaids. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call the person in front of me a mermaid. She looked really beautiful. "What is this place?" "This is the deep sea fortress. My brother found you and brought you here to recuperate. These are your clothes. Put them on, and you don't have to stay in the air bubble anymore." The mermaid called Alice handed me the clothes and left. I changed into the clothes, and something magical happened that I didn't expect. The air bubble that had shrouded me disappeared in an instant. However, I gained the ability to breathe underwater. Although I was surrounded by water, my clothes weren't wet at all. It seemed that the clothes had been enhanced by some special magic. I walked out of the room and saw Alice not far from me. I was about to greet her when I saw a muscular merman standing next to her. The merman had explosive muscles, and he was wearing a glowing armor. At first glance, I knew that he wasn't an ordinary person. "Brother, the human you brought back the other day has woken up." When Alice saw the merman, she felt an indescribable fear. The merman glanced at me, but didn't pay attention to me. "Father is looking for you. Leave this human to me," the merman said. Alice reluctantly turned around and left, leaving me at a loss. "What are you looking at?" "Kid, remember, don't have any ideas about my sister. Come with me," the merman said impatiently. The man was arrogant, but he had the right to be arrogant. "My name is Larrick Field. Please take care of me in the future." I introduced myself to him. "What's your name isn't important. What's important is that I saved your life. From now on, you have to obey my orders unconditionally. Otherwise, only death awaits." He was indeed cold and arrogant. The two of us didn't say anything. We just walked silently in this strange place. "Where are we going? Why are you talking so much nonsense? Are all humans like you?" I stopped talking and continued to admire the scenery along the way. There were corals and reefs along the way. Fish swimming in the water, prawns and crabs in groups. When we finally walked out of the building, I realized that the building now looked like an underwater castle. From afar, it looked like a sapphire embedded in the seabed. It was dazzling and eye-catching, as resplendent as starlight. Then, I followed the merman to an underwater military camp. This place was about 3,000 diameters away from the castle. At the entrance of this underwater military camp, there were two Murloc warriors with tridents in their hands. Their mighty figures looked particularly dignified under the contrast of their armor. After that, I saw a mountain of corpses outside the barracks. There were Murloc corpses, human corpses, and some corpses of unknown races. I have a bad feeling. I don't know where Avina is right now. How is she? Sigh. Sea Dragon Nogi's army has been too rampant recently. Many of our Murloc warriors were killed. The merman sighed. Sea Dragon Nogi's? I had never heard of this name before. The merman wanted to tell me about Sea Dragon Nogi's, but who knew that something unexpected would happen? Not good. Sea Dragon Nogi's army is coming. An alarm sounded from a watchtower in the barracks. At the same time, the Murloc warriors in the barracks immediately prepared for battle. Flying arrow. A shark with star-like spots all over its body swam rapidly towards them under the merman's shout. The merman climbed up skillfully and turned to me. "I can't take care of you. Find a place to hide first." A Murloc warrior handed the merman a sharp trident. Under the merman's command, all the Murloc warriors followed him out of the barracks to fight. In an instant, only a few of the Murloc warriors and I were left in the barracks. I climbed up the watchtower and looked at the intense battle happening below. I saw a few thousand bony sea ghosts. They pounced towards the merman's side. In the blink of an eye, the two armies were engaged in a fierce battle. Battle cries were incessant. Most of the sea ghosts were holding rusty broadswords in their hands. It was difficult for them to fight against the well-equipped Murloc warriors. Soon, the sea ghosts were defeated. Suddenly, a wave of water bombs flew over from afar and exploded in the middle of the Murloc warriors. Then, more and more water bombs appeared and exploded around the merman. In an instant, the merman army was covered in blood and flesh. "Not good. The sea monsters are coming," a Murloc warrior beside me said. "Sea monsters? They seem very powerful." The sea ghosts that had been defeated earlier pounced again. The seductive figures of the sea monsters gradually approached. They were ghosts in the water. They were beautiful but evil. Their magic was something that ordinary people couldn't resist. At this moment, the merman's battle became even more difficult. He used his trident to stab at the sea ghosts that pounced on him. However, there were more sea ghosts surrounding him. The sea monsters kept shooting water arrows from afar. The merman couldn't hold on any longer, and his arms were cut a few times. Seeing that the situation was critical, I calmed myself down and thought of a solution. "Everyone listen to me. Bring the pitchforks and follow me." I finally thought of a good solution. "You don't have the right to give us orders. Our mission is to defend the barracks," a merman captain said. I didn't say anything and punched the captain to the ground. "Now you have the right," I said with my eyes wide open. The merman continued to ride his star shark and fight on the battlefield. However, there weren't many of his troops left. They were surrounded by the sea ghost army that couldn't be killed. The sea monsters also surrounded them. However, they didn't approach the battlefield. "Release." At my command, hundreds of pitchforks flew down from the other side of the sea. These hundreds of pitchforks charged towards the sea monsters. In an instant, more than half of the sea monsters were killed or injured. The battlefield was always changing. Victory and defeat were often decided in the blink of an eye. Without the support of the sea monsters, the sea ghost army started to collapse under the attack of the merman warriors. They didn't know how many people had come to save the merman, so they didn't dare to act rashly. When the merman saw that the reinforcements had come, he didn't know who would save him. Immediately, the morale of the merman's troops rose. They bravely charged towards the sea ghost army that was several times larger than them. I also led a few hundred merman guards and charged towards the sea monsters to fight hand-to-hand. However, it was obvious that I had underestimated the sea monsters' abilities. The hundreds of merman warriors that had charged down were all controlled by the remaining sea monsters. The merman warriors began to raise their weapons and aim at their own people. The merman's troops had a little bit of hope, but it disappeared in an instant. The sea ghosts knew that the reinforcements were only 500 merman warriors. Moreover, they were controlled by the sea monsters. Thus, the densely packed sea ghost army surrounded me, the merman and the merman warriors. Chapter 18. At that moment, I screamed in pain. Once again, I lost control of my body, and flames covered my body. I was like a demon that walked out from hell. My scarlet eyes stared at the sea demon in front of me. Cheat. When the flaming fist pierced through the sea demon's body, the sea demon's body turned into steam and disappeared. Following that, the other sea demons cried out in pain. This wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. For some unknown reason, the flames on my body didn't extinguish at the bottom of the sea. All the fishmen looked at me in shock. Their gazes contained a hint of worship. "Charge, brothers!" The fishman raised his arm and shouted. Instantly, the fishmen warriors' morale rose, and they charged towards the sea demons. The sea demons were finally defeated. They ran away, and only a few fishermen warriors were left on the battlefield. Most of them were injured. Following that, thunderous applause and cheers followed. The fisherman rode on the star shark called Flying Arrow and rushed towards me. "Hello, warrior. My name is Igor, and I am the son of the Sea Emperor. I represent my people to give you the highest respect." The fisherman's attitude towards me was no longer as arrogant as before. He didn't expect that I would possess such great strength. However, my stamina was depleted, and I fell down like the previous few times. However, Igor quickly rushed forward to help me up. After this battle, the son of the Sea Emperor, Igor, began to recommend me to the Sea Emperor Serene. I returned to the place where I stayed before. It was the castle, and I was lying at the same place. "Lyric, I didn't expect you to be so strong." Alice also heard about my story, so she came to see me. I also don't know what happened back then. "Do you want to follow me to a fun place?" Alice purposely acted mysterious. "Where?" "Follow me." We finally arrived at the place that Alice mentioned. It turned out to be a huge treasure cave. There were all kinds of treasures, such as ivory, gold, jewels, pearls, and so on. "Do you think these shiny things look good?" Alice still had an innocent smile on her face. Yes. I didn't know what to do. After all, everything here was priceless. With so many treasures, anyone would be jealous. But here, they were just objects that glowed. I walked up and looked at the mountain of treasures. Suddenly, my eyes brightened. Is this the legendary elven leather armor? And could that be a spatial ring? Isn't this the elves' snowfall bow? This. I was at a loss for words. These things were priceless, but there was no market for them. "What happened to you?" The way Alice looked at me was the way you would look at a villager who had just entered the city. "Alice, I know it's not appropriate to say this, but can I take a few things with me?" I was so happy that I couldn't control my rationality. Of course, these things are all trash to us. If you like them, you can take them all. This is just my private collection. My father has a lot more. Trash. I think most people want to say, "Don't give it to me." I didn't hesitate to take all the treasures that caught my eye. As for the gold and jewels, I was too embarrassed to take them. Actually, I wanted to put all these things into my spatial ring, but that would be too unkind. Most of the things I took were weapons and equipment. Among them were the elven leather armor and the sword of retribution. The elven leather armor was strengthened by elven magic. It was light, tough, and invulnerable. The sword of retribution was a precious weapon. It was a one-handed sword made by a dwarven blacksmith. It was famous and sharp. As for the spatial ring, it was a golden ring made with spatial magic. Its storage was as big as a house. As long as one signed a contract with blood, one could control it with one's thoughts. The most important thing was that even people who didn't know magic could use it. Moreover, I also chose a few weapons for Ravina. When I find her in the future, I must give them to her personally. I immediately put on my equipment and put the other things into the spatial ring that I had already bound with my blood. I was very grateful to Alice and promised her that I would help her fulfill any request she had. For the next day, I continued to recuperate in the deep sea fortress. The son of the Sea Emperor, Igor, told his father about me. Those who are not of our race are bound to have different intentions. There are many things that you don't understand. The deep sea fortress is ruled by us merfolk. Do you think that the other sea folk are willing to be ruled by us? If we weren't strong enough, they would have rebelled long ago. The Sea Emperor said to Igor. However, Igor still persuaded his father. Only then did the Sea Emperor reluctantly agree to meet me. Just like that, I came to the hall of the deep sea fortress and met the Sea Emperor. He was an old merfolk. On his head was a golden crown that was studded with gems. In his hand was a golden scepter. The clothes on his body were also very luxurious. "Hello, young man. Welcome to the deep sea fortress." The Sea Emperor walked down from his throne. "Long live the Sea Emperor." I replied with human etiquette. We merfolk don't have the same rules as humans. Igor reminded me. "Young man, I have a test. Do you dare to accept it?" The Sea Emperor sized me up and thought for a moment. "What test?" "If you fail this test, you will die. Do you dare to accept it?" "Your Majesty, you have to tell me what kind of test it is." "Young man, You have to show me your courage first. I dare. I didn't know where my courage came from. Well done. I want you to open the seal on Yanlong's soul. However, whether you can survive or not will depend on your fate. The Sea Emperor smiled. No, father. Lyric will definitely die. Igor protested to the Sea Emperor. Are you afraid, warrior? The Sea Emperor asked me. There was a hint of test in his tone. Am I afraid of death? You have to know that I am a demon hunter. What haven't I seen before? Very good. The Sea Emperor was satisfied with my performance. What is Yanlong's soul? I asked in confusion. However, I suddenly remembered what the old Hist told me before. The Hist said that I would find clues about my identity in the deep sea fortress when I went to look for the Mercenary Association's leader. It seemed that Yanlong's soul was the clue. Legend has it that a few hundred years ago, the rebellious dragon of the dragon race, the Belgrave Flammarion, became the enemy of the entire dragon race because of some things. In the end, he was severely injured and was banished to the bottom of the sea. Not long after, he died. However, his soul didn't disappear. Instead, it was left in a seal in the sea. Legend has it that those who were chosen by him could open the seal on his soul and communicate with him. They could even obtain his power. On the contrary, those who were not chosen by him will be burned to death by his flames. Countless warriors tried to open the seal in order to obtain great power. However, they all failed in the end. Igor explained to me. I was silent for a moment. I knew that this was a dangerous matter. However, in order to solve the mystery of my identity, I was willing to try. Chapter 19. All right, let me give a try. Since you have decided, then beat me first. Only those who can defeat me are qualified to touch the seal. Otherwise, they will die in vain. So far, only 2 people have defeated me, but the 2 of them didn't manage to break the seal alive. Igor sighed. When will I fight you? Now. The Sea Emperor, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, Now. But I'm not ready yet. Your enemy will never give you time to prepare. The Sea Emperor ordered a guard to give me a weapon. Igor immediately understood and rushed towards me, brandishing his trident. Before I could prepare, I was knocked to the ground by the Sea Emperor's son. In order not to send you to your death, I will do my best to defeat you, said Igor, the son of the Sea Emperor. In fact, he was doing this out of kindness. The clanging sound of weapons colliding echoed in the hall. I dodged the attacks of the Sea Emperor's son with difficulty. With my strength, I couldn't compete with Igor. Igor's attacks weren't fatal, but they were enough to knock people down. Not fair. What's wrong? I have never used this kind of weapon before. It's not easy to use. I wanted to stall for time to recover my strength and calm down. All right, let him choose his own weapon, the Sea Emperor ordered. Actually, I was fighting for a chance to catch my breath. The battle just now made me a little exhausted. In the end, I chose a 2-handed longsword. That sword was still very useful to me. After choosing my weapon, I returned to the real battle with the Sea Emperor's son. Long weapons had their advantages. My sword was gradually unable to withstand the trident of the Sea Emperor's son. If it weren't for Igor showing mercy, I would have been killed. I spat out a mouthful of blood and knelt down on the ground. The long sword in my hand had been knocked away by Igor's trident. This is already my limit. Igor and I were not on the same level. Even so, Igor was still holding the mentality of letting me win. Give up. Only then will you have a chance to survive. Igor said kindly. I won't give up so easily. As I said that, I slowly stood up and picked up the sword that had fallen on the ground. Let's continue. My strength made Igor respect me. Then I won't hold back. Igor rushed at me, brandishing his pitchfork. Then I met Igor's attack head-on. But at the same time, my injuries were not light, and I spat out a mouthful of blood. I really can't let you throw your life away, unless you can bring out the strength you had during the battle that day. Igor was worried for me, and his attacks became even more ferocious. Finally, I was knocked down again by Igor's fork. Royal Father, Lyric doesn't need to undo the seal on Yanlong's sword. The Sea Emperor's son said happily. It's not over yet. I struggled to get up. Even the Emperor of the Seas was surprised by my tenacity. Lyric, don't force yourself. That won't do you any good. I ignored the words of the Sea Emperor's son. My eyes seemed to be burning with the flames of hell, full of anger. The Sea Emperor's son was shocked by my gaze. It was not the gaze of a human at all. It seems that there are many secrets about me that no one knows about. The Sea Emperor's son clenched the trident in his hand, and he began to become serious. Because the current me was no longer the me he was familiar with. The Sea Emperor's son stared at me, his hands unconsciously sweating. At this moment, I gave people a kind of suffocating fear. The Sea Emperor's son and I rushed at each other at almost the same time. Even though I wasn't holding any weapon, I was able to shatter the Sea Emperor's son's trident into several pieces. This time, it was the Sea Emperor's son who fell to the ground, injured. The Sea Emperor's son had used all his strength in that attack. Otherwise, he might not have been able to keep his life. The Sea Emperor didn't expect me to have such great strength. It seemed that his son wasn't lying. The young man in front of him was indeed not ordinary. I lost. The Sea Emperor's son accepted his loss wholeheartedly. At that moment, I seemed to have lost all my strength and fell to the ground. The Sea Emperor had someone send me to my room to rest. Igor was also heavily injured. The Sea Emperor had him retreat to rest and recuperate. Royal Father, you don't have to say any more. I saw it all. Perhaps he is the legendary person who can break the seal. But, Lyric, is he stronger than that person? I know that person defeated you easily with one strike, and you're not convinced. But he is still your brother, the pride of our family. I mean, my brother is so strong, but he was burned to ashes by Yanlong's soul. Isn't Lyric sending himself to death? Heaven helps the worthy. You don't have to worry about him. The Sea Emperor said thoughtfully. 3 days later, I woke up. I found Alice guarding by my bed, still with her blue hair and cute smile. You are awake. You have slept for 3 days and 3 nights. Alice said earnestly. Is Igor okay? He is fine. You should worry about yourself. The doctor said that your injuries are not light. You need to rest well. At this moment, Igor and the Sea Emperor walked in. Your Majesty, you can lie down peacefully. Did I pass the test you gave me? You passed the first step, but the next 2 steps will be more difficult. The Sea Emperor continued. Actually, the reason why I gave you the test is because I want you to stay here. I hope you can return to the land soon. Return to the land? That's right. The only way to the land is blocked by the sea dragon Nogia's army. If you want to go home, you must defeat him. But the best way to defeat Nogia's is to obtain the power of Yanlong's soul. I thought of Avina and got up from the bed. Then I will go now, but you must be mentally prepared, the Sea Emperor reminded me. The Sea Emperor brought me and the Sea Emperor's son to the place where Yanlong's soul was sealed. It was a secret place, and there was a team of elite murlocs guarding the entrance. The Sea Emperor brought me in, and I saw a burning sealing rune in the cave, illuminating the dark cave. This is the seal of Yanlong's soul? I couldn't believe my eyes. I walked over and closed my eyes. I gave it a try with the mentality that I would die. Although Fang's seal was burning with flames, it felt cold when I touched it. At that moment, I didn't know why, but my heart was suddenly filled with murderous intent. I closed my eyes and used all my strength to undo the seal. Suddenly, I felt as if I was in a sea of hellfire. I could feel the heat around me, and I heard the voice of an old dragon. Puny human, who are you? I questioned. Ignorant human, I am Yanlong's soul. Chapter 20. Your Yanlong's soul? I'm here to borrow your power. Very direct. The last person who tried to break the seal also said the same thing to me. However, what a stupid thing to say. I accidentally burned him to death. Now, you're saying the same thing to me again. I really don't know how long you can live. Are you dead or alive? Do you think you can kill me so easily? Boy, I don't have much patience to talk nonsense with you. Hurry up and break my seal. Otherwise, I'll kill you. How do I break the seal? Use your blood to drip on the seal. I did as Yanlong's soul said. I bit my finger and dripped my blood here. In an instant, everything in front of me disappeared. A burning dragon's soul appeared in front of me. His appearance made people not dare to look at him directly. Now, can you lend me your power? I asked Yanlong's soul. What a joke. I'm just a soul. Actually, I died long ago. Before my physical body was destroyed, I sealed my remaining power and formed a dragon egg. Then I spat out far away. And then, if that dragon egg hatches smoothly, a human baby will appear. He will grow up like a human. However, he won't be a human. He will be a descendant of the dragon, a human who can use dragon magic. I couldn't sort out my thoughts. However, I was thinking, what does this have to do with me? And you, perhaps you don't know. To break the seal, you must have the same blood as me. So, you mean I'm that descendant of the dragon? I was completely shocked when I heard this. So this was the mystery of my origin. That's right. Yanlong's soul was silent for a moment. That's impossible. I don't have the characteristics of a dragon. Show me your arm. If you have a dragon tattoo on your shoulder, then it's definitely correct. Dragon tattoo? I remembered the scar on my shoulder. I showed the scar to Yanlong's soul. That's right. You're really a descendant of the dragon. Yanlong's soul was very happy when he saw the dragon tattoo on my arm. Since I'm a dragon descendant, how can I obtain the power of a dragon? One of my friends is missing, and I need the power of dragons to defeat the sea dragon Nogius. It's that brat Nogius. Have you ever lost control of the flames in your body before? I thought about it for a moment. Recently, I had been unable to control the flames in my body. It was as if there was another kind of power in my body. Moreover, this power had been going berserk recently. Yes, I do release flames unconsciously. My son, this is the power within your body, awakening. Son? Yes, you're the continuation of my body. It's not an exaggeration to say that you're my son. Yanlong's soul smiled. His huge dragon head gave me goosebumps. But what does this have to do with me wanting to obtain the power of dragons? I was confused. Fool, the strength of a dragon lies in the strength of its body and its powerful dragon tongue magic. Now that you have the body of a dragon, you only lack the spiritual power of a dragon and the corresponding draconic incantation. Then you can use draconic magic. Then how do I obtain the spiritual power of a dragon and the draconic incantation? Child, it's very simple. I'm the soul of a dragon. As long as I become one with you, you will have the spiritual power of a dragon. Moreover, my dragon soul also contains a lot of knowledge about dragons, which can be passed down to you. As for the draconic incantation, there will be relevant records in some of the lost historical sites on this continent. Moreover, by hunting other dragons, you can also obtain their dragon souls. Slay dragons? Before I could react, Yanlong's soul disappeared. I only felt the sky turn dark. After that, I learned a lot of things that I didn't know. This included how to use draconic magic. According to my current strength, the strongest draconic magic that I could use was Yanlong's exploding claw. At this moment, I slowly came back to my senses. I realized that everything that happened just now was like a dream. I had returned to the previous place. Father, Lyric didn't burn to death. The son of the Sea Emperor seemed particularly happy. It seems that everything was arranged by fate. The Sea Emperor's old face revealed a gratified smile. Lyric, since you were able to break the seal on Yanlong's soul, you will definitely be able to obtain Yanlong's power. I will give you 3 days to master this power. The Sea Emperor said, Your Majesty, I won't let you down. Lyric Field, I now officially confer you the title of Honorary Baron of the Deep Sea Fortress. You will also have the position of Royal Guard Captain. You can enter the palace at will. The Sea Emperor held the golden scepter and said to me, Father, we should also train a group of elite troops. That is, select 100 elite warriors and equip them with tiger shark mounts. The tiger shark's speed and attack power are very shocking, coupled with the fighting power of the elite Murloc warriors. This is definitely a troop that will make the enemy tremble in fear. In addition, train a group of Murloc warriors that can throw pitchforks. Also, our long-range troops are too few. We should train more fish gunners to deal with the sea demons. Igor explained his strategy. The Sea Emperor thought for a moment and said, Son, I have thought about what you said, but we don't have time now. The enemy is getting restless. Father, I could train a group of tiger shark knights before the enemy attacks. The Murloc warriors are all brave warriors. The son of the Sea Emperor patted his chest and promised, Igor, I believe in you. In the Ocean Festival 3 days later, we will organize a counterattack against Sea Dragon Nogias. At that time, Lyric will be the key to determining the outcome of this war. The Sea Emperor smiled. When I returned to my room, I thought about everything that had happened between Yin Long and me. The Belgrave Flammarion, my beloved father, had just met me and then left me. My heart was very empty. I didn't know what would happen next. Time passed quickly. The Ocean Festival that the Sea Emperor had mentioned had finally arrived. My mental appearance was obviously different from before. Now, I gave people a feeling of high spirits. Today is the Ocean Festival. Sea Dragon Nogias, just you wait. I will be your nightmare. I had a murderous aura in my bones. Deep Sea Fortress, Ocean Festival. It was finally time for the Deep Sea Fortress's annual festival, the Ocean Festival. The Ocean Festival was a festival to celebrate the Sea Emperor's birthday. It was a festival for the Murloc to pray for blessings. Because of the Ocean Festival, the mermaids changed into beautiful clothes and swam in the water. They sang cheerfully, their voices melodious. The upper body of a mermaid was a human body, while the lower body was a fish body. These mermaids gave me the feeling of bathing in the spring breeze. When I arrived at the hall where the Sea Emperor was, I walked in. My status in the Deep Sea Fortress was very high. Even the fishermen guards were looking at me with reverence and respect. Baron Lyric, the Sea Emperor, came forward to welcome me. Lyric, today is the Ocean Festival. Time flies, the son of the Sea Emperor said with a smile. Whether we can win this battle depends on you. The Sea Emperor patted my shoulder. Sea Emperor, we are fighting with the enemy outside the Deep Sea Fortress. The palace will be empty. What if the enemy sneak attacks? I thought a serious problem. Don't be afraid. Our Deep Sea Fortress has an extremely strong defensive barrier. Even if the enemy has thousands of soldiers and horses, they won't be able to break through. The son of the Sea Emperor said proudly. I was wondering why the Sea Dragon Nogias had occupied all the seas outside the Deep Sea Fortress, but only the Deep Sea Fortress survived. The question in my heart was finally answered. Baron Lyric, we can only succeed in this battle. Failure is not an option. The Sea Emperor showed the temperament of an emperor. The Sea Emperor Shearway, the son of the Sea Emperor Igor, and I raised our glasses and drank the wine in one gulp. We wished for victory in this battle. In the next few days, the son of the Sea Emperor strengthened the defense of the barracks while training the newly formed Tiger Shark Knights. The son of the Sea Emperor rode on his star shark flying arrow. His posture was graceful and agile. In his hands, the trident was used to perfection. At the same time, the army of the Sea Dragon Nogias began to move. Near the barracks of the Deep Sea Fortress, there were small groups of Sea Dragon Nogias troops harassing them every day. Moreover, the number of harassing troops increased every day. Baron Lyric, you saw it too. The army of the Sea Dragon Nogias is constantly growing. We have to think of a countermeasure. The Sea Emperor said as soon as he saw me, Your Majesty, do you have any ideas? Chapter 21. Capture the ringleader first. Your mission is to kill Sea Dragon Nogias. After killing Sea Dragon Nogias, his army will naturally collapse. As long as he doesn't appear, you can't do anything. No matter what happens, you have to remember this. The Sea Emperor warned me. Yes, Your Majesty. The next day, the Murloc guard stood guard on the tower, as usual. He stretched and looked at the front of the barracks. Suddenly, a few black dots appeared in front of him. Then, not good. Sea Dragon Nogia's army is attacking. The Murloc guard sounded the alarm in a panic. With the sound of clashing, Sea Dragon Nogia's army gradually approached. The black mass of troops suddenly made the bottom of the sea dim. The footsteps of Sea Dragon Nogia's army shook the entire bottom of the sea. At the same time, the hearts of every Murloc warrior were shaken. Fear spread at this moment. In the face of countless sea dragon Nogia's army, the Murloc army of only about 10,000 was much weaker. The countless sea dragon Nogia's army was made up of ghost sharks, sea ghosts, sirens, and Murloc warriors. The Murloc warriors looked a bit like Murlocs, but they were stronger and more evil and cruel. The Murloc warriors held spears or rusty axes in their hands, each of them bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws. In Sea Dragon Nogia's army, there were also a few deep-sea giant octopuses. They were all bloodthirsty monsters, waiting to tear the enemy's body apart at any time. The sea monster that the pirate leader Luffy's encounter on the ship that day was this kind of deep-sea giant octopus. A Murloc guard's hand trembled a little, and he choked a little. The Sea Emperor's son, Igor, walked over and patted the soldier's shoulder. Warriors, victory is not stained with the blood of our own men, but with the blood of our enemies. Today, we will end everything in front of us. Today, we will make the enemy tremble with fear. Today, we will let the enemy know what it means to come and not return. Igor shouted loudly. Every word he said was engraved in the hearts of the Murloc warriors. Now it was time for battle. The Sea Emperor's son rode on Flying Arrow and said, "Fish gunners, get ready." Behind him were 30 well-trained tiger shark knights. Release. With the order, the slowly approaching Sea Dragon Nogia's army was suddenly shot down by the spears that fell from the sky. Thus, the battle began. Charge! The Sea Emperor's son pointed his trident at the enemy. He and the 30 tiger shark knights tore a large hole in the dense enemy forces like shooting stars in the night sky. Then, the well-equipped Murloc warriors with tridents also charged toward the enemy. Fear had long since drifted away with the sea, because Igor's words were engraved in everyone's hearts. Victory is stained with the blood of the enemy. Slaughter. Slaughter was happening everywhere. A merman warrior stabbed a trident into a merman's body. At the same time, another sea ghost chopped off the merman warrior's head. The seductive sirens were hiding outside the battlefield, constantly releasing water bombs and charming the Murloc warriors. The tiger shark knights relied on their speed and impact to break through the sea demon's line of defense. The huge spear cut a huge gash in the bellies of the sea monsters. Screams, followed by screams. At this moment, the battlefield was extremely tragic. The sharks tore at each other, and the fishmen fell one after another. I stood on the tower and watched. I couldn't fight yet. It wasn't time for me to fight yet. My mission was to kill the Sea Dragon Nogias. The sea ghosts that kept climbing up the tower were shot down by the Murloc trident throwers guarding the tower. However, they were heavily outnumbered. The remaining few thousand Murloc warriors still had to face the army of the Sea Dragon Nogias, which was several times their number. The Murloc warriors were exhausted. After all, they had already killed thousands of Sea Dragon Nogias' army. The wounded Murloc warriors retreated to the vicinity of the tower. The Tiger Shark Knights, led by the Sea Emperor's son, also retreated. In this battle, the Tiger Shark warriors killed countless enemies. The Sea Emperor's son knew that the tower was about to fall. The Sea Dragon army didn't give the Sea Emperor's son a chance to breathe. They immediately rushed forward. For a moment, the sound of weapons colliding, the sound of fighting, and the sound of blood spraying were mixed together. The corpses of Murloc, mermen, sea ghost, and sirens were everywhere. The bottom of the sea became a blood-red seabed. This was an ocean of blood. This was a living hell. I couldn't stand it anymore. I wanted to rush down and fight alongside the warriors. However, I knew that as long as the Sea Dragon Nogias didn't appear, I couldn't do anything. I heard the sound of flesh tearing. It turned out that a tiger shark was eating the corpses of the Murloc warriors. Damn it, I couldn't stand it anymore. Yin Long's exploding claw. I smashed my fist heavily on the ground. I used the strongest magic that I could use with my current dragon soul power. A dragon's roar resounded through the bottom of the sea. The cracks on the ground burst into flames. At the same time, the ground shook a few times. Sure enough, dragon magic was powerful. In an instant, at least 2,000 Sea Dragon Nogias' army turned into countless flames and scattered on the bottom of the sea. This was the most vivid display of Yin Long's exploding claw since I learned it. You can't. The Sea Emperor's son saw this scene and roared loudly. He also knew my importance. However, it was all too late. I weakly half-squatted on the bottom of the sea. Seeing such a scene, the Murloc warriors were also in a killing frenzy. Just at the moment when the situation of the battlefield was about to change, a pair of red eyes appeared in the distant darkness. That gaze passed through the pitch-black bottom of the sea and shone over. That gaze made all the Murloc warriors who were fighting a bloody battle shudder. What exactly was that? Two red lights gradually approached. It was a handsome man. His gaze was extremely terrifying. Lofi's, the weak me said in surprise. That's right, this person was Lofi's, the Singhati pirate leader Lofi's. As a pirate leader, he was born to be a strong existence. But now, Lofi's was more like a demon who killed people like scything flax. His eyes that radiated red light was unacceptable. Lofi's, I shouted. Ever since I escaped from his ghost ship that day, I never heard any news about him. Every day, I hoped that the things that happened that day didn't happen. I hoped that everything was just a dream. I hoped that when I woke up from the nightmare, Avina would still be by my side. But all of this was just hope. Hope was always so slim. Now, Lofi's was standing in front of me, but it was different from what I imagined. Lofi's was a completely different person. Lofi's didn't speak. He just stretched out his arms. His arms were actually covered in black dragon scales. His hands had also turned into huge dragon claws. He charged into the chaotic battlefield like a bolt of lightning. Crack, crack, crack. The bodies of 3 Murloc warriors instantly exploded. Flesh and blood splattered on the bottom of the sea. Soon, there were less than 2,000 Murloc warriors left. Even the son of the Sea Emperor almost lost his life. At this moment, the Sea Emperor appeared on the battlefield with the golden scepter in his hand. Come out, guardian of the deep-sea fortress, rock-shell turtle. The Sea Emperor's expression was solemn. A huge rock-shell turtle emerged from the bottom of the sea under the Sea Emperor's feet. This rock-shell turtle was bigger than half of the palace. From afar, it looked like a small mountain. Chapter 22. The appearance of the rock tortoise caused the seabed to shake. Even Lofi's couldn't do anything to this behemoth in front of him. Sea Dragon Nogias, don't think that I can't recognize you just because you're possessing a mortal, Poseidon said to Lofi's. What's the use of you recognizing me? Today is the day you die. Lofi's, who was possessed by Nogias, laughed. Let's see if you have the ability. Poseidon's face showed a hint of disdain. Lofi's separated his claws and kicked back with his legs. He was like an arrow that left the bow and stepped on the rock tortoise's head in the blink of an eye. He used his huge dragon claws to stab the rock tortoise's head, but the sharp dragon claws only left a shallow wound on the rock tortoise's scalp. What kind of powerful defense was this? Sea Dragon Nogias, who was possessing Lofi's, never thought that things would turn out like this. The rock tortoise swung its head and Lofi's was flung far away. It seems that the human body does limit my ability, Lofi's said coldly. Lofi's roared. A black light flew out from Lofi's body, and Lofi's fell to the ground powerlessly. Sea Dragon Nogias finally appeared. It turned out that he was possessing Lofi's body, and this was his original body. I watched all of this, but I couldn't do anything. Yin Long's exploding claw just now exhausted my dragon soul power. I can only barely support my weak body now. Sea Dragon Nogias transformed into his original form. He had a huge dragon head, sharp dragon claws, a strong dragon tail, and tough dragon scales. The rock tortoise raised its dragon head and accumulated a rapidly spinning water ball in its mouth. The huge water ball smashed towards Sea Dragon Nogias and burst open on his body. Sea Dragon Nogias, who had the protection of dragon scales, was shaken and took a few steps back. Only this kind of power can't defeat me, the Sea Dragon Nogias sneered. The Sea Dragon Nogias raised his huge dragon claw and slammed it on the back of the rock shell tortoise. The tortoise shell that was as hard as a small mountain was actually cracked by this attack. The rock shell tortoise lowered its head. This strike was not light at all. Die! The voice of the sea dragon, Nogia's, resounded throughout the seabed. Don't! I roared, just as Nogia's claws were about to attack the rock shell turtle again. Boom! A powerful aura shook all the creatures within 100 miles to the side. The Sea Emperor looked at me in disbelief. My eyes were cold and emotionless. My entire person had turned into the same person I had when I was in danger. It was as if I was a messenger from the underworld. Sea Dragon Nogia's scales were damaged by this sudden attack. Sea Dragon Nogia's was somewhat unwilling to give up. In fact, the Sea Emperor didn't expect me to be so powerful either. Then let's get this over with, the Sea Dragon Noguthias said seriously. The Sea Dragon Nogia spun around like a super strong whirlwind and attacked me. Boom! The Sea Dragon Nogias collided with me. However, I didn't suffer any damage. Only the clothes on my body were torn to shreds. My sparkling elf leather armor was revealed. Ever since I obtained this treasure in the treasure cave, I had been wearing it all day. How was this possible? The Sea Dragon Nogias looked at the human in front of him in shock. Yanlong's exploding claw. I smashed my fist into the head of the Sea Dragon Nogias. A loud shattering sound could be heard, causing my heart to tremble. At this moment, no matter if it was the Fishman army or the Sea Dragon Nogias army, they had all forgotten about the battle as they looked at the scene of the duel between me and the Sea Dragon Nogias. Suddenly, the Sea Dragon's body was covered in flames. A heart-wrenching scream came from the mouth of the Sea Dragon Nogias. Not long later, the scream stopped. The Sea Dragon Nogia's skin had been burnt to a crisp. My gaze was as if it came from hell, cold and bloodthirsty. At the same time, I collapsed from exhaustion. I returned to my previous self, completely different from the terrifying appearance just now. At this moment, a huge beam of light was sucked into my body from the corpse of the Sea Dragon Nogias. This was the dragon's soul. I instantly felt that my strength had increased by quite a bit. This was dragon slaying. The Sea Dragon Nogias was the first dragon that I had slain with my own hands. I kept the bones, horns, tendons, and skin of the Sea Dragon Nogias into my spatial ring. At this moment, there was silence. Then, the Fishman warriors raised their tridents and shouted. The remaining Sea Dragon Nogia's army was frightened by the scene before them. Seeing that the Sea Dragon Nogias was dead, some fled for their lives while some surrendered. The war was finally over. The Sea Dragon Nogia's army was finally defeated. The Ocean Emperor looked at me who had fallen and praised me in his heart. The Ocean Emperor's son also led the Tiger Shark Knights after the bloody battle and wiped out the remaining Sea Dragon Nogia's army. Lyric, good job. The Ocean Emperor's son was filled with respect for me. I was brought to the deep-sea fortress by the rock turtle to recuperate. The evil of the Sea Dragon Nogia's army was finally exorcised, and the bottom of the sea welcomed a new dawn. 3 days later, this time, my injuries were not light. I almost died from the backlash of using too much dragon soul power. The Sea Dragon Nogia's army was dead. Lofis, who was controlled by the Sea Dragon, was also awake. Lofis told me that Avina had gone to Partheni Island, so I had to immediately go to Partheni Island to look for Avina. Hence, I brought the captured Lofis to bid farewell to the Ocean Emperor and the others. Lyric, are you really leaving? Alice was reluctant to part with him. Alice, you're a good girl. Thank you for taking care of me for so many days. I completely treated Alice as my own sister. Lyric, let's compete again when we have time. I might not lose to you next time. The Ocean Emperor's son patted my shoulder. Baron Lyric, take care of yourself. The deep-sea fortress is your home. We welcome you at any time. The Ocean Emperor said as he stroked his white beard. Yes, your majesty, I said with a smile. Let the rock-shell tortoise send you to the surface. The Ocean Emperor said. Thank you, Ocean Emperor. I was also reluctant to part with these fishmen. Line up. The Ocean Emperor's son ordered. The fishmen warriors on both sides stood at attention. The trumpeters began to play military music. Lofis, let's go, I said to Lofis who was standing by the side. We rode on the back of the rock-shell tortoise. Goodbye, I bid farewell to the Ocean Emperor, the Ocean Emperor's son Igor, and the Fishman Princess Alice. Alice's eyes were filled with tears. The Ocean Emperor's son led the Tiger Shark Knights to send me off. Finally, I returned to the surface of the sea. It feels good to be able to breathe fresh air. I thought to myself, Lyric, this is where we'll leave you. The rock-shell tortoise will send you to the other side of the sea. The Ocean Emperor's son said, Brother Igor, take care. Just like that, the rock-shell tortoise carried Lofi's and I to the other side of the sea, to Patini Island. Lofi's and I slid down from the rock-shell tortoise's back. This was the first time I felt how wonderful it was to step on the ground. Thank you, rock-shell tortoise. The rock-shell tortoise nodded and dived into the sea. You said that Ivana might be on this island. If we can't find her, I will hand you over to the guards. You will find her. It turned out that when we parted ways that day, Ivana fell into the sea with the small boat. However, when we were in the air, the little magical beast that had just hatched could actually run out of the magic space on its own. This was something that had never happened before. Later, the little magical beast that had just hatched could actually fly with Ivana. After flying for a long time, they finally landed on an unfamiliar island. The little magical beast immediately returned to the magic space. It seemed that its magic power was almost exhausted. Where's this? Lyric, how are you now? At that time, Ivana felt helpless and scared. Chapter 23. AI Wayna felt cold and hungry. She was walking alone on this strange island, and she was a little scared. She didn't know what kind of danger was waiting for her. After walking for a long time, there was no one around. This island was very different from the island we were on before. This island was very large and could accommodate at least several towns. It seemed that the previous island was only a subsidiary island of this island. Ivana finally saw a little light in the dark wilderness. Walking over, she found that it was a small town. It was already late at night, and the streets were deserted. Only a few sentinels who were in charge of security walked unsteadily, perhaps because they had drunk a little wine. At this time, all the shops on the street were closed. Only a hotel called House of the Fire Dragon was still faintly lit. Ivana gathered her courage and walked to the hotel. This was the first time she came to this strange place alone. She had only heard of this place before, but now that she had set foot on this land, she was helpless in front of all the unknown. This made Ivana realize the horror of reality. For some reason, Ivana's luck didn't seem to be very good. First, she was molested by the hooligans in the Green Dragon Bar. After I saved her, the Black Dragon attacked the King's City. It wasn't easy to come to the Demon Hunter's Blade and settle down temporarily, but good times didn't last long. During this mission, I was separated from her again. Ever since she came to this strange island, Ivana had no one to rely on. Several patrolling guards saw the ragged clothes of Ivana. For a moment, they were attracted by her beauty and immediately became lustful. Where did this girl come from? How about having a drink with your brother? A drunk guard whistled. It's very dangerous at night. Do you want your brother to protect you? Ha! Facing the guards flirting, Ivana could only ignore it. She didn't know how to deal with it. At this time, it would be good if Lyric was by her side. Ivana didn't want to complicate matters, so she lowered her head and quickly entered the house of the fire dragon. As soon as they entered the inn, the warm bonfire made Ivana feel like crying. Can I eat something? Ivana said, holding back her tears. The owner of the hotel was a middle-aged woman. She glanced at the filthy Ivana. Of course, as long as you have the money. But I don't have any money on me. Why are you here if you don't have money? Do you think this is a church? You stinky beggar, get out of here, or I'll hand you over to the guards. Please, I haven't eaten for a long time, Ivana said with a sobbing tone. Tears seemed to be about to fall from her eyes. At this moment, a human woman in a purple robe, whose appearance and figure could be described as perfect, walked out of the room and happened to witness this scene. Aunt Susan, let her come to my room. I'll pay for her. All right, you can go upstairs. The middle-aged woman allowed Ivana to enter the woman's room after hearing the beautiful woman's words. It's you, Sister Natalia? Avina couldn't believe her eyes. Why are you here? Avina, where's Lyric? Natalia didn't expect such a coincidence. Natalia invited Avina into the room. The room was spacious, warm, and bright. Avina couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. Avina, don't cry. Take a shower, change into clean clothes, and eat something, Natalia said. Okay, thank you. Avina was very grateful. On the other side, Lofis and I arrived at Patini Island. Where are we? Near Port Oxta. Lofis seemed to be very familiar with this place. You're not a bad person. I didn't know why I couldn't sense Lofis' malice. After I gained the power of a dragon, I had a certain level of natural perception and could detect hidden malice. You were the one who freed me from the nightmare of the sea dragon Nogius. Kid, I didn't expect you to have such power. Are you sure you saw Avina being brought in this direction by a flying creature? Yes, it's in this direction, but I can't be sure that she landed on this island. We'll definitely find her. My eyes were filled with determination. I know a good hotel in this town. Let's stay there tonight. But I don't have any money. It's fine. Do you still need money when I'm here? Lofis held the hilts of the two swords at his waist. We walked into town. Because it was dark, the guard with torches couldn't see Lofis and my face clearly. Who are you? The guard shouted at us from afar. Passers-by. The guards shone their torches at us carefully. Seeing that we weren't armed, they didn't pay much attention and let us in. Luckily, I told you to hide your swords. Those guards were lucky. Otherwise, they would have become ghosts under my swords. I ignored Lofis. I knew that Lofis had killed many people in the past. When we arrived at the fire dragon's home, Lofis knocked on the door. Who is it? A middle-aged woman saw Lofis through the small hole next to the door. She was shocked, but the door of the hotel opened immediately. Why are you here? You're doing well, Susan, Lofis said with a smile. Do you know how much the bounty for your head is? Susan asked anxiously. Hurry up and arrange a better room for me. I'm tired. Lofis took off his two curved swords and placed them in front of the counter. Susan glanced at me and led the two of them to an empty room upstairs. I'll bring you food later. There's hot water in the room for you to take a bath. You'd better not leave the room. You're a wanted criminal, Susan reminded him. I looked around the room. It was clean. There was a deer's skull hanging on the wall. It gave off a noble vibe. You know the owner of this hotel? I was still confused about their conversation. Yes, her husband is a pirate. I saved his life and gave him a large sum of money. I told him to find a wife and live a good life with her. His wife is that woman. Yes. Lofis and I fell asleep on two small beds. I was still thinking about Avina. Early the next morning, Natalia checked out of the house of Fire Dragon with Avina, who looked like a princess after changing into new clothes. The two women got into a black horse-drawn carriage that was parked in front of the hotel. The town's morning was lively, and the streets were filled with people. I stretched myself and saw Lofis still sleeping on the bed. This guy doesn't have his guard up at all, I thought. Avina and Natalia sat in the same carriage. The carriage was on the road to the city of freedom, Velan. Velan was the capital of Partheni Island and the headquarters of the Mercenary Association. Chapter 24. After last night's conversation, Avina found out that Natalia had been sent by our commander to look for Avina and I. It was because our commander was worried about us. Who knew that Natalia would run into Avina the moment she arrived at Port Oxta? Avina told Natalia about what had happened to her in the past few days and told Natalia about what had happened to me. The carriage passed through the wilderness of Partheni Island. Natalia and Avina were talking to each other. They were very close. However, I had just finished washing up. I remembered the black carriage that had stopped outside the hotel this morning. I had been woken up by the sound of the carriage. It was so noisy, I didn't even sleep well. Lofis finally woke up. It was already past 9 o'clock. I thought to myself, you slept like a dead pig, and you still have the nerve to say that you didn't sleep well. You were also woken up by the sound of the carriage. Really, I don't know who's so eager to die so early. You woke up too late. Besides, it seemed like there were two women in the carriage. Women? Were they beautiful? Lofis' interest was immediately piqued when he heard that there were women. I didn't see clearly. I was still in a daze at the time. I just casually glanced out the window to see what was so noisy. Dong dong. A clear knock on the door interrupted my conversation with Lofi's. "This is breakfast." Before I could say anything, the door creaked open. It was Aunt Susan, who was so noisy downstairs this morning. I was woken up by it. Lofi said as he got out of bed and put on his clothes. Lofi's tan skin and strong muscles. If we were in the Empire's capital, a bunch of young girls would have screamed. There were two women. Don't say that they were beautiful, especially the blonde girl. She was dirty when she first arrived, so I didn't think much of her. But after she dressed up this morning, she was really beautiful. Back in the day, I was also a delicate flower around here. Aunt Susan started to be infatuated with herself. "Blonde girl? Are you sure?" I didn't care at first, but when I heard the blonde girl, I perked up. Yeah, it's not like I've never seen a blonde girl before. Aunt Susan was at a loss. "Then do you know where they went?" "How would I know? But I think I heard one of the girls say that she wanted to go to Welland." "Hurry up and get busy with other people. I'll be leaving soon. We'll settle the bill next time." Lofi's hurriedly interrupted. "This is breakfast. I put it here." "Lofi's, I will remember the rent. You don't have to worry about it until then." After Susan left, I looked very excited. It's definitely Avina. This town is very close to the sea. She must have landed here. I really hope she didn't meet any bad people, because I really can't think of who the other woman is. On Avina's side, after a day and night of travel, the carriage finally stopped in front of the most majestic building in the city of Freedom, Velan City. The building was the headquarters of the Mercenary Association. In front of the building was a large square with a 5 to 6 meter tall statue. The statue was carved out of dark brown granite. It was a burly Murloc man wearing a horned helmet and carrying a two-handed sword on his shoulder. His eyes were fixed in front of him. According to Natalia, the statue's name was Aranak, the god of war of Hadalator. He was the one who founded the famous Mercenary Association on the continent. After listening to Natalia's introduction, Avina was instantly filled with respect for the statue named Aranak. Natalia said that she was carrying a letter from the old Hist. She was going to give it to the leader of the Mercenary Association, Balance. And so, Natalia walked into the Mercenary Association's headquarters and handed it to Balance. After reading the letter, Balance told Natalia and the others to find a place to stay. He would send someone to find them in a few days. On the other hand, Lofi's and I were rushing to Valen. "Hey, kid, are you sure that the blonde girl Aunt Susan was talking about is the Avina you're looking for?" Lofi's asked as he followed behind me. "I'm not forcing you to follow me. Your legs are yours. You can leave whenever you want." I didn't even turn my head. "Kid, I'm older than you. How can you talk like that? Besides, who is that blonde girl to you? Why are you so excited when you hear her name?" Lofi's complained. Just like that, we walked through the wilderness of Parthenon Island one after the other. We were heading towards the city of Freedom, Valen. "But I've always hurt you. Don't you hate me? Also, why did you save me in the first place?" Lofi's asked in order to ease the awkwardness of the journey. "You sure talk a lot," I said impatiently. All I wanted to do now was to get to Villain and find Avina as soon as possible. "Aren't you the least bit interested in what happened to me after I fought the deep-sea octopus? I can't wait to tell you about it." Lofi seemed to be talking to himself. "All right, I know you want to hear it. Then I'll tell you." Lofi's was just about to talk about his extraordinary experience when we ran into some trouble. It was a group of bandits. There were 5 of them. Whoosh! An iron arrow whistled past Lofi's cheek. Then, a fierce bandit wearing leather armor and holding a double-edged axe rushed over. Because I had exhausted my dragon's soul power in the battle with the sea dragon Nogias, I couldn't use any draconic magic. Besides, there is no need to use draconic magic to deal with bandits. Robbing your grandpa." Lofi's looked at the bandits with disdain. A purple light came out of the scabbard, and a red light appeared on the neck of the nearest bandit. Very quickly, so quickly that the bandit didn't even have time to react before he fell powerlessly. Lofi's quickly rushed to the next bandit, so that the bandit shooting arrows from afar couldn't catch sight of Lofi's figure. Lofi's killing movements were swift, precise, and swift. Of the 5 bandits, other than the one who shot arrows from afar, who ran away, the remaining 4 who rushed over were all dead on the ground. After wiping the blood on his swords, Lofis put them back on his waist. "My good mood has been ruined by this bunch of thieves," Loftus said to me. "You're courting death." After tidying up, the exhausted Lofis and I finally arrived at the legendary city of freedom, Valen. We quickly found an inn. There weren't many people in that inn. Just as Lofis and I were about to go upstairs, a door on the 2nd floor opened. Avina and Natalia walked out. At that moment, no words could express the excitement in my heart. I believe that this might be the will of the heavens. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.